All right, my apologies to the public. I take full responsibility. Before this, we started at 5 o'clock. We had an executive session to discuss personnel matters, and so just poor meeting management on behalf of your mayor. So if you could please continue to be a little patient. We're just going to wait for one more council member to join us, and then we'll get going. So if you want popcorn or drinks or concessions, go now and then come back. All right, let's go ahead and get going. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's a regular session, so it's a very special time of year. Let's go ahead and start with the roll call. Here. All right, let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, quick reminder, anyone wishing to speak at the first call, public invited to be heard, you need to get your name on this list before we actually start public invited to be heard. So come down and get your name on the list if you want to talk. If you forget or throughout the course of the evening want to say something, you may wait till the end and we will again invite you to come up, and that will be second call, public invited to be heard. All right, so that said, do we have this? Can we have a motion for the approval of minutes for February 26, 2019 regular session? Please. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 5th, 2019? Thank you. Let's vote. That also passes unanimously. All right, let's go ahead and move on with, we have a proclamation this evening. It's not on the agenda, but I believe they're here. Can I invite the folks down who are going to accept the proclamation designating the month of April 2019 as Longmont Thinks Month in Longmont, Colorado? So while you come down, I'm going to read this. It says, whereas our community recognizes that access to opportunities for inquiry and reflection is a basic human need, and whereas giving citizens the tools they need to think critically is vital to the health of democracy, and whereas our community is committed to bridging differences, and we recognize that thinking deeply together is a profoundly humanizing experience, and whereas our community is committed to empowering future generations to become thoughtful, engaged citizens, and whereas participation in philosophical discussions is an effective way of achieving the above goals. Now, therefore, I, Brian J. Bagley, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim April 2019 is Longmont Thinks Month in Longmont and encourage the residents of our community to engage in philosophical discussion as a way to bridge our differences and build our sense of community. Love, the Mayor. So if you could go ahead, you have some things you'd like to share about your proclamation and your organization? Go ahead and push the button so you can be heard. Yep.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mayor Bagley. And I know that our Mayor Pro Tem has come and visited and done some philosophy with their children. And Councilmember Martin, you have been a tireless supporter of philosophy and critical thinking in this community. So thank you. It means a tremendous amount to us. We are Gray Havens Philosophy. We are one of many, many philosophy for children and communities organizations in this country. P4C, or Philosophy for Children and Communities, is taught in over 60 countries. It's been around since the early 70s, and it's a profoundly effective way to give people access to a healthy community of inquiry, which we believe is a basic human need, because everyone asks deep questions. And the opportunity to ask those questions together in community helps kids do better in school, make better decisions. They're more resistant to extremist behavior. It helps them socially, emotionally. It unifies a community and helps us have respect for each other's differences and make the best decisions for ourselves and our families. And how awesome and just what an honor it is to live in a community that not only cares about what its citizens think, but wants to give them all of the tools they can possibly have for doing the most effective thinking. So if you visit our website, which is greyhavensgroup.org, Grey, havensgroup.org, and click on seasonal programming, you can find the whole Longmont Thinks schedule. We have a Longmont Thinks Facebook page. There will be at least one event, usually more, every week for the month of April, giving people an opportunity to think together and look for our How to Have a Philosophical Conversation with Your Child brochures around town. And you can sign up for that workshop through Longmont Recreation Services. So we're just really looking forward to thinking with all of you. Thank you so much.
Well, hold on, but you're going to have to get a picture with us, if that's okay.
Thank you, yes.
And then I just want to point out that it's quite ironic that I'm sure someone watching the podcast is like, oh my gosh, how ironic. The mayor doesn't think. But in all seriousness, when I've had the opportunity, when I went and visited your group,
yes,
I was impressed by how inclusive and tolerant and smart and creative. And it was almost like they were little aliens that got teleported here from the 80s. Because they just the things they like were just really cool. So if you could we get a picture with you, please?
Oh, please.
Great.
Yes. Should we come to you? Okay.
Council, please. All right, let's go on to agenda revisions and submission of documents. A council member has asked, Councilmember Peck has asked that we put on a future agenda the revision of, what was it called, Councilmember Peck? The expand. So Senator Foote asked us to consider, along with other local municipalities, of supporting the expand program. The idea being that in Boulder, the federal government cut funding for children and adults with mental health issues, mental and physical impairment issues. And since our citizens are using Boulder facilities, he's asked us, hey, would the local municipalities be willing to step up so our citizens can continue to participate? So if we could put that on a future agenda, discuss that, that'd be great.
Is there a desired time frame on that one?
Joan? remember how we talked about the
Right.
just yeah, look and let us know if it's going to take a while.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Mayor, there's one revised item for item 9E on everybody's desk. It's a revised roster for the technical review group. Just the liaison was left off the list.
Okay,
Looks like this.
great. Jake Marcy. We don't want to leave Jake off the list. All right. Let's move on to city manager's report. Do you have a city manager's report?
No report, Mayor,
Okay,
Council.
great. So far, so good. All right, let's move on to special reports and presentations. I would like to I recognize some friends here. Their fingers smell like ash and gunpowder. They're going to come talk to us about fireworks. Presentation of $12,000, a donation from the Skyline Kiwanis Club for the 4th of July fireworks show. And Sandy Cedar, our assistant manager, or city manager, will introduce the Skyline Kiwanis Club members who will present the city of Longmont with $40,000 for the 4th of July fireworks show.
Mayor Bagley, thanks so much.
That's what it says. I was waiting for somebody to say it. I think it was somebody didn't change it from last year. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
My name's Scott Nix with Nix Excavating. This is Bill Stone, and this is O.J. Pratt and Dennis Ogden. We're all club members. We've been working on, of course, the fireworks for many years. And this year we thought we'd, of course, with the changes in funding, we have a $40,000 goal for fireworks. And our Skyline Kiwanis would like to present our first, what we do annually has been $12,000. So we want to present the council with this check tonight. And then also we've collected $5,000 from Ward Electric and Ward Engineering. So they've come forward and been really a great sponsor. So we have gentleman Steve Pierce from First American Insurance is also participating, as well as Wyatt Soft Goods. They've been a great supporter. Wet Goods, not Wyatt Soft Goods. Anyway,
who was Steve Pearson with?
Steve Pierce was First American Insurance. So that's still coming. So we'll hopefully get a chance to get on the agenda later in the end of April, 1st of May. We'll try to hit it again. We're hoping that the chamber's on board, and so we should have plenty of funding. So
I made a joke, but again, I just want to be clear. Skyline Kiwanis Club, you're giving us a check tonight for $12,000. Thank you.
Plus 5.
And plus Ward Electric.
Correct.
Is donating $5,000.
Ward Electric and Ward Engineering, two
and
different companies.
Ward Electric and Ward Engineering.
Yes.
So I want to repeat those names as much as I can so that hopefully people watching at home and here locally can go out and support these people for just being cool. And then Steve Pearson of First American Insurance and Wyatt's Wet Goods. And so I'll say their name more when they come back.
And our website is set up at www.skylinekiwanis.org.
www.skylinekiwanis.org.
Okay. And we have it set up where we can take small donations on the website. And so we're funneling everything there, and then we'll bring that monies as they show up.
Thank you. I know that you guys have been outreaching to the business community, and that's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your support, and hopefully we'll have we'll have a great show, on the 4th.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and take a picture. OJ, do you want a job? You could be acting mayor and you could fly through the consent agenda. OJ is one of our city's auctioneers. All right, let's go ahead with presentation of Visit Longmont 2018 year-end report. Item 6B, Nancy Rezick, Executive Director of the Visit Longmont, is here to present the 2018 year-end report. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, Mayor Bagley and City Council. I'm Nancy Rezick from Visit Longmont, and I am pleased to present the 2018 recap, along with some 2018 research findings, and then proposed activities for 2019. Sorry. Whoops. That's not right. Click that one. Okay, I was clicking the other side. So just an overview of what we're going to discuss here tonight: the 2018 travel research findings, the 2018 Visit Longmont marketing, the 2018 partnerships and earned media, the 2018 Visit Longmont operations, the 2018 tourism grant program, and the 2019 overview. So first we'll discuss the 2018 National State of the American Traveler Study. This was a study conducted in conjunction with Miles Partnership and Destination Analyst. They are both organizations that are trusted organizations in the destination marketing organization world. What they found was they surveyed over 2,000 respondents. That was a great cross-section of travelers throughout the United States, and they were adult travelers. And they found that they took an average of 4.1 trips in 2018. And those trips had an average expenditure of over $3,800 in the summer and over $3,100 in the winter. And this correlates great to Visit Longmont in that we see our peak travel season from June 1st through August 31st. And so the summer expenditure correlates greatly with Visit Longmont activity. And where do those travelers get their inspiration? The majority of them get their inspiration from online media. So whether that is a travel site, whether that is social media, the majority of travelers get their inspiration there. And then following is word of mouth. And so they hear from friends and family of places that they've traveled, and they are inspired by that. And then personal referral from social media. So if someone has a Facebook page and they refer Visit San Diego to a friend, that would be a personal referral from social media. And then 22% offline media, which is your traditional print media. So visitor guides, brochures, print ads, all of those type of things. They discovered in their survey that there were some deterrents to travel. The majority of respondents, 31%, said that travel cost was a deterrent to them. Personal finances at 36%. And 33% work commitments were something that deterred their travel. This graph is a little bit hard to read, but if you take a look at it, you'll see that enjoying nature or scenic beauty is one of the key attributes that people are either interested in or extremely interested in, along with outdoor activities, road trips, historical attractions, and visiting state, local, or regional parks. If you look at Visit Longmont's social media activity for 2018, you'll see that Facebook experienced a steady increase over the year. We saw exponential growth in the Instagram platform. The Instagram platform is particularly geared to the younger traveler, and so we're very interested in that growth that we're seeing in Instagram. And then the final social media platform that we monitor is Twitter. And we started monitoring that activity in mid-2018, and you'll see that that has the greatest potential for growth in social media platforms for Visit Longmont. Once again, a 19% in growth in Facebook, 103% growth in Instagram, and 14% growth in Twitter. In 2018, we were also exposed to a new opportunity. This is a free program that Miles Media partnered with Google on and offered only to destination marketing organizations. You'll see that Longmont is featured on that Google post. And we feature posts about 2 times per week. And we show that our activity on the website. So the content from the Google post is tied directly back to the website. And so we can see website activity increasing from July when we started the Google post. We, as I said, we post about 2 times a week. We feature things to do, we feature the visitor guide, and we also feature itineraries, travel itineraries that travelers are particularly interested in. We saw an 11.4% growth in website traffic just from July through December. So July is when we started the Google post. And we had over 421,000 views of our Google post in that time period.
Do we know how many were unique visits?
I can get that information
Okay,
for you.
right.
I don't have
Sorry
that
to
right
interrupt.
with me. That's okay. So then we look at website traffic. You can see through the first 5 or 6 months of the year we were really struggling. And then July is when we implemented the Google post. In addition, we hired a full-time marketing person at the end of June. And you can see from this graph that there's about a 6-month period of onboarding for a new employee. And you can see the activity that happened with the website by the time that person was on board and fully engaged in what they were doing for Visit Longmont. In October and November, we saw particular spikes in web traffic related to things that were going on in the community. So Day of the Dead celebration, we began promoting Ansel Adams, the exhibit at the museum. We promoted Day of the Dead, NitroFest, and we partnered with an online platform called Heidytown, and so we saw some increase in traffic from that directly. We experienced the highest website traffic we've seen to date in December, over 13,000 visits. And if you look at the website visits, we showed a 3% growth from 2017 to 2018. We were targeting an 8% growth, so we missed that mark slightly, but we have seen exponential growth in the first 2 months of 2019, so we're very encouraged by that activity. So LOCO was implemented in early 2014 when I came on board with Visit Longmont. It was the most successful viral marketing campaign that Visit Longmont has experienced to date. We decided in 2018 that we needed a brand refresh, and so we worked with a local graphics firm on coming up with these new designs for LOCO. And we've implemented these on all of our print, social media, and in our website. You have copies in front of you of one of the marketing rebranding efforts. We created a small map for visitors. We found that visitors were coming into the visitor center did not need a detailed street map of Longmont, but were interested in determining the major north, south, and east-west thoroughfares in Longmont. So we created this map with the visitor in mind, We initially printed 3,000. To date, we've distributed about 2,400. We've distributed them through our hotel partners, through the visitor center, through the chamber and the LDDA, and through restaurants and shops in town. Lodgers tax receipts are probably our most effective key performance indicator. And we can see that in 2018, the lodgers tax receipts were either equal to or above the lodgers tax receipts in 2017. And you'll see that 2018 realized a 7% growth over 2017. And you look at the activity from 2015 through 2018, and we show a 25% growth over that period of time. And 2018, we showed the highest receipts that we've received in lodgers tax to date. Partnerships are very important to Visit Longmont. One of our key partnerships is the Northern Colorado Front Range region. So we partner with Boulder, Estes Park, Loveland, Fort Collins, and Greeley on promoting travel to the Northern Colorado region. In 2018, we produced a video that featured all of the areas in the Northern Colorado range, and I will just show you the Longmont portion of this video. Whoops. So that was the Longmont portion of the video. As I said, all of the different destinations had a portion of that video, but the main promotion network used for that was an online media called Out There Colorado. And so Out There Colorado has both a social media presence and a website presence. This video alone generated 13,000 views. Out There Colorado caters 53% to Colorado and 47% mainly to Texas, Illinois, California, Florida, Missouri, and Utah. Another key partnership that we have formed is that with the Colorado Tourism Office. So in 2018, they worked with an organization called Leave No Trace, and they produced this brochure that was geared towards sustainable tourism. That has become a very hot topic in the destination marketing world. And so for a minimal cost, we were able to customize this brochure to Longmont. So on the right-hand side there, probably on the back of your brochure that you received, shows how Longmont was featured in that brochure. Another partnership that we were afforded through the Colorado Tourism Office, we were allowed to take over their Instagram page for a week. And this, again, was a free opportunity. It presented Longmont in the best light. We experienced 19.4 thousand engagements throughout that week. And the CTO Instagram page has a following of about 143,000 followers. So this is really a great opportunity for us to promote Longmont at no cost. Also, our partnership with the CTO, they held their leadership retreat in Longmont in December of 2018. Their entire staff attended. They had their meeting in the morning, and then in the afternoon, we took them on what is called a familiarization tour. And we toured around Longmont on the brew hop trolley. We ate lunch at Cheese and Porter's. We made cheese. We visited Left Hand Brewing for a tour. We wrapped up the afternoon at Dickens Opera House and the St. Vrain. Once again, they promoted this on their social media, and we promoted it on our social media as well. Another partnership opportunity with the CTO is to participate in their press releases. They distribute their press releases to over 1,200 journalists and media outlets across the United States. They also feature their press releases on Colorado.com and on their social media platforms. We were featured in 2 press releases in 2018. In 2019, what we've done is signed up for Google Alerts so that we are able to track the earned media to find out exactly where it is run. Probably our most successful earned media for 2018 was a feature on Livability magazine. Their website enjoys over 1 million visitors monthly. And we met with the writer to discuss the cheese culture in Longmont. And we featured cheese importers, Haystack Mountain goat cheese, and the art of cheese in this article. And this was posted on both the Livability website and the Livability social media platforms. Colorado Vacation Guide affords us leads. So we feature an ad in that publication, and then readers are able to ask for more information about Longmont. We saw a 5% increase in leads, and we calculate that the economic impact of that was over $1.9 million relative to research we conducted in 2017 with RRC Associates. There is a multiplier that was used to figure out the economic impact of those visitor guide leads. And then additionally, for the visitor guide request for Visit Longmont specifically, we saw a 31% increase in 2018. That reflected about $125,000 increase in economic impact in 2018 over 2017. In looking at visitor center walk-ins, which were also included in our contract in 2018, you can see that we realized growth in that area as well. We experienced about a 10% increase in walk-ins from 2017 to 2018. Additionally, we feature merchandise sales in the visitor center, and we have the new logo branding on the merchandise. And then we were able to realize a 21% increase in merchandise sales in 2018 over 2017. We also, in 2018, added Colorado branded apparel for those visitors that are specifically looking for Colorado versus Longmont. The next area of focus for us is RFPs. So just to explain the RFP process to you, we receive RFPs from 2 sources. Number one, Cvent, which is a major website for meeting planners across the United States and the world for that fact. And then Destination Colorado forwards leads to us. In 2017, we received 35 leads. 5 of those were converted, and 86% were not converted. Relative to, we didn't have the available space for those leads. We did not, the meeting planner changed the location, or there were unknown factors that were reason why those were not converted. In 2018, we received only 22 RFPs, only 2 of those converted, and 91% were turned down. Once again, space issues was the major focus there, that we just didn't have the space to accommodate the groups. As you well know, Boulder built 500 hotel rooms that opened in 2018, and so we're not seeing as much compression from the Boulder market. And then the convention center closure at the end of September impacted our ability to attract meetings. In 2019, we are focusing on the weddings market. We have shown that over $28,000 is just spent on the wedding portion, wedding planning portion of a wedding. We talk about room nights and how much economic impact those can have on the economy. And so we're focusing on weddings in 2019. Our tourism grant program for 2018, we saw a 17% increase in attendance over 2017, and we saw a 171% increase in room night stays as a result of the tourism grant program. If we take the total value of the attendance and of the room night stays, and we apply that multiplier that came from our 2017 research, we find that we had over $5.5 million of economic activity from the tourism grant program. And because of our multiplier, we realized a $228 return on investment for every dollar we spent on the tourism grant program. In 2019, we are embarking on a redesign of our website. This will show you the first prototype we've seen of what the website will look like. We're working with SimpleView, who is a company who specializes in destination marketing organizations. They are designing our website for us. Right now we are in just about complete phase 1, which is we've gotten the prototypes for the website, we've gotten the site map, and then we're currently working on migration of content and photos from our current website. Our launch date is projected for June 20th. This new website will increase the usability for visitors, staff, and merchants in town. Merchants will be able to update their listings and events through an extranet that they will have access to. Other 2019 projects include the wayfinding signage program, which we're working with the LDDA and the City of Longmont on. We have distributed the RFP for the feasibility study for the Performing Arts and Convention Center. Those responses are due by next Friday, and then the committee will meet mid-April to review those responses and have a consultant selected by the end of April for the feasibility study. We also plan to conduct a gap analysis survey to show what areas of product development we are lacking in Longmont so that we can attract more visitors to the destination. We also are participating in a groundbreaking survey, a tourist sentiment survey, which takes conversations that happen across the world, and wherever Longmont is mentioned, whether it's positively, negatively, or neutral, those are all factored in, and then there's a tourist sentiment index that is applied to Longmont. And we hope to have those results for you at the next presentation. We are also partnering with a company called Bandwango on the creation of a craft beverage passport that will be free. Visitors can go on the website to sign up for that program. They patronize the participants in that program, and we're able to determine economic activity from that. And then finally, we are participating in a national demographic research project with Longwoods International that will show us demographically who's traveling to Longmont, where they're coming from, how long they're staying, the composition of their travel party, etc. So at this point, I'm willing to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? All right, I don't see any. Thank you very much for your work and your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, and as soon as you can get us a convention center, the happier everyone will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to Longmont. We've already done that proclamation. Let's move on to the first call, public invited to be heard. So there are 3 people signed up. Let's start with Mary Ann Watson. It usually doesn't take this long to get to public invited to be heard, so we appreciate you waiting.
That's okay. That was interesting. Makes me want to come visit Longmont. I live here. Good evening, Mayor Bagley and council members. I'm Mary Ann Watson, and I'm a supporter of the Longmont Living Wage Coalition. In the past weeks, you've heard some of our members speak of the public health effects of low wages, as well as the effects on the labor market. Rather than giving you more data, I'd like to make a personal observation. I've been a member of the Boulder County Circles program, a volunteer with the Hour Center, and am now a volunteer with Hope. I'm also a member of the Heart of Longmont United Methodist Church, which has recently signed as a supporter of the Longmont Living Wage Coalition. Through these experiences, I've been amazed and dismayed at the number of people needing assistance in our community who are working full-time, and many of them working 2 and 3 jobs. I've seen firsthand the toll that low wages takes on people's health and their self-esteem. I've also seen the improvements in the lives of those who've been able to increase their wages. At one time, I erroneously assumed that people needing public assistance were not working for many reasons. But now the phrase, the working poor, has taken on faces of people I know. The talk of increasing minimum wages to a living wage is a good way to improve lives. I feel proud of the City of Longmont for its efforts already in effect related to living wages for our city employees. And now we're asking the city to extend those concerns to members of our community who work for companies that the city has contracts with. We've had conversations with many of you on the council and with some city staff. Again, I remind you that we're urging the city to set living minimum wages to employees of local companies paid with the city funds by inserting a labor practices clause with an index for timely increases into these contracts. We're waiting to hear results from staff collection of current wage data from these companies. Then, as you begin to prepare a budget for 2020, you'll have data to guide you to include any increases that may be necessary. This can be one part of Longmont's Vision 2020, one part of a living, thriving community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Rita Gee.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. My name is Rita G. I am the chairperson for the Neighborhood Group Leader Association, and I'm here to request, on behalf of the NGL, to request approval for the NIP grant for this year. Basically, I believe the City Council over the years past have budgeted $50,000 for the NIP program, and we're requesting $40,000 for 10 communities, 10 projects that we want to spearhead. And in the past, well, basically, I think the projects that the communities are wanting to do are things like water conservation. There's a lot of old sprinklers, irrigation systems around town, and a lot of neighborhoods want to improve them. Some of the other projects on the docket include park improvements, safety signs for some of the communities, and maybe building pollinator habitat. Did I say that right? Yep. Yeah, pollinator habitat for another community. Utilizing the NIP program has been a great highlight for members of the NGLA. It's a long, tedious process. We look forward to it, but it also brings the community together. A lot of people get together for meetings to discuss what they want to do to improve within the community. And it's fun. The project takes a while, but we get together and we work on it together. And so we just ask for a little support from the city to help start some of these projects. I also want to take a minute here to acknowledge Council Member Tim Water for his continued contribution as liaison for our group. Thank you for that. I want to take a minute to also thank Council Member Joan Peck for her past contribution. So basically, if you guys can just help us out, little extra money would be great. And it just goes a long way to help us achieve our goal as a neighborhood to make it a safe, strong, and sustainable community within the city of Longmont, because we love Longmont and we just want to make our city and our community better. So thank you for your time.
Great, thanks. We'll work on the NIP grant, but I have it on good authority that Dr. Waters is bringing donuts to the next meeting.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah. All right, I'm not sure how to pronounce this next name, Strider.
How do, Mayor, City Council, Strider Benston, 951 17th. Sorry to talk about national stuff again. I hope to get off of that, but things are happening. The massacre in Christchurch last week with 50 dead. The killer cited our president as an inspiration for his killing 50 Muslims. And the president got real mad. And so today he expressed his anger at Senator John McCain. Isn't that interesting? I wrote a eulogy for John McCain last fall, some of you may recall. Even though I disagree with much of what he did in his life, he was an honorable man. I wish we had that kind of people in office today. Going to the question of federal courts, Judge Ellis said Paul Manafort, the campaign chairman of the president, other than the $55 million that he laundered and stole, and other than 30 other crimes of which he was convicted or pled guilty in 2 different federal courts, he said that he has otherwise led a blameless life. Well, this person may have been involved in the assassination of President Joaquim Aquino in the Philippines because he was working for dictator Marcos. People don't remember that. Or another phase of his life, he may have been responsible for the killing of more rhinoceroses and elephants than any other person in the history of the world, because he was working with and financing Jonas Savimbi in Angola in the 70s and 80s, and that's how he financed himself: blood diamonds, CIA money, and killing rhinoceroses. So compared to that, Reality Winter was a U.S. soldier, and she exposed what she had found out: Russia interfering to overthrow the American presidential election. She got 5 years in prison. Let's have a little sanity and look at what's actually taking place in this country. And thanks that we still have cities and we are actually working democratically in our cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Strider. All right. We doing okay, Council? Having fun? All relaxed? Good time? All right, great. All right, then that concludes our first call, public invited to be heard. Our city clerk, Ms. Quintana, will you please sing our consent agenda?
No,
No?
but
Okay.
I will read it. Item 8A is ordinance 2019-25, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as the New B property, the premises, to Sipe Farms LLC, tenant. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for April 9th, 2019. 8B is Resolution 2019-30, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Colorado Department of Public Safety, Division of Criminal Justice for coordinated response and assistance to domestic violence crime victims Y4 grant. 8C is Resolution 2019-31, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city, acting by and through its water utility enterprise, East Cherry Creek Valley Water and Sanitation District, acting on its own and on behalf of its East Cherry Creek Valley Water Activity Enterprise Incorporated, Arapahoe County Water and Wastewater Authority, and United Water and Sanitation District for a short-term raw water exchange. 8D is Resolution 2019-32, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Boulder County for its Jenna-Sister program. 8E is Resolution 2019-33, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Workforce Boulder County for internship sponsor agreements from March 2019 through February 2020. 8F is Resolution 2019-34, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the Library Consortium Agreement with the Flatirons Library Consortium for shared library services. 8G is Resolution 2019-35, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Boulder County for its Genesis program. 8H is reappoint Affordable Housing Technical Review Group members for 2019 while the funding process for affordable housing projects is reviewed. 8I is approve 2 capital improvement program amendments, and 8J is approved 2019 Neighborhood Improvement Program grant recommendations.
All right, thank you, Don. Are there any council members who would like to pull any items? Councilmember Finley?
I'd like to pull 8H.
All right, do we have a motion? Councilmember Finley?
I move the consent agenda minus 8H.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. First is ordinance or item 9A, ordinance 2019-16, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2019. Are there any questions or comments from council? All right, seeing none, I'd like to open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-16. Anyone want to speak? All right, seeing no one, let's go ahead and close the public forum, or the public hearing. Can we have a motion, please? Mayor Pro Tem? That's right. All right, seeing none, I will go ahead and move ordinance 2019-16. Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, item 9B, ordinance 2019-17, a bill for an ordinance amending section 15.04.030 of the Longmont Municipal Code on affordable housing incentives. Is there a staff report on this? There's not, correct? All right. All right, are there any questions from council? And Don, can I get the voting box cleared so I can see if anybody's in the queue? I don't think they are, but all right, cool, thank you. All right, seeing that no one on council has any questions at this time, we'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 2019-17. Anyone here want to speak? All right, seeing no rush to the podium, we will close the public hearing. Can I have a motion, please? Councilmember Martin. All right, it was moved by Councilmember Peck, and it was seconded by Dr. Tim Waters. And Councilmember Martin, you can reserve your comments for another occasion. All right, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, let's go on to 9C, ordinance 2019-18, a bill for an ordinance amending chapter 4.78 of the Longmont Municipal Code on fee collection and related provisions. Are there any questions or comments from council? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on the ordinance. All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and, I'm sorry. All right, let's go ahead and close the public hearing. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'd just like to reiterate my objections last time that I said, and I'll say it again, that this creates a problem with us not getting interest. It also creates a problem if we don't have a timeline on this, it creates a problem, and sometimes we've had developers who, there's a 5-10 year gap between when they start and when they finish, and that's a problem in our planning. So without having a timeline this, I won't support it.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Finley?
I'd like to move passage of ordinance 2019-18.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. All right, seeing no further comments, let's go ahead and vote. All right, that passes 5-2 with Councilmember Peck and Mayor Pro Tem against. All right, let's move on to item 9D, ordinances amending the Longmont Municipal Code on city rebate programs. So, Eugene, do we need to have a separate motion on each one of these? Okay, all right. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and read the ordinances, and then we'll go back and have one public hearing, and then we will take 6 individual votes. Okay, So the ordinance is amending the Longmont Municipal Code on city rebate programs, which we will be voting on this evening. Our ordinance 2019, assuming there's a motion and a second. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but I presume there will be a motion and a second on the following. Ordinance 2019-19, a bill for an ordinance amending Chapter 4.08 of the Longmont Municipal Code on property tax refund to incorporate city rebate programs for income qualified residents. Item D2, ordinance 2019-20, a bill for an ordinance amending section 14.04.095 of the Longmont Municipal Code on water bill rebate and relocating to chapter 4.08 of the Longmont Municipal Code. Item D3, ordinance 2019-21, a bill for an ordinance amending section 14.32.040 of the Longmont Municipal Code on residential self-generation rate, or also known as RGen. Item D4, ordinance 2019-22, a bill for an ordinance amending section 14.32.030 of the Longmont Municipal Code on residential demand rate, or also referred to as RD. Section D5, ordinance 2019-23, a bill for an ordinance amending section 14.50.050 of the Longmont Municipal Code on rebates and relocating to chapter 4.08 of the Longmont Municipal Code. And then finally, D6, ordinance 2019-24, a bill for an ordinance amending section 14.32.020 of the Longmont Municipal Code on residential energy rate, or also known as RE. All right, let's go ahead and ask if there's any questions or comments from council pertaining to D1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinances 2019-19 through 24. Would anyone like to address this issue? All right, may I have a motion on ordinance 2019-19? All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Finley and seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, ordinance 2019-20, also known as D2. All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Waters and seconded by Councilmember Finley. Let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. D3, ordinance 2019-21. That's been moved by and seconded. Let's go ahead and vote. I move passage. That sounded cool. I'm going to start doing that. I move passage. All right, that passes unanimously. D4, ordinance 2019-22. Can I have a motion, please? All right, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem, and I think it was seconded by, all right, Dr. Waters. Let's vote. That passes unanimously. All right, D5, ordinance 2019-23. I'll second that one. Can I get a second? All right. All right. It was moved by me and seconded by Councilmember Peck, but Councilmember Finley attempted to second it, but failed miserably. Okay, let's go ahead and vote. I know, you're doing, I do need that help oftentimes. All right, D6, ordinance 2019-24. I'm sorry, that passed, one second, that last one, D5, ordinance 2019-23 passed unanimously. Now, item D6, ordinance 2019-4 has been moved by Councilmember Waters, and I will second that. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, let's move on to item E, or 9E, public hearing on consolidated annual performance report, also known as CAPER, for 2018 Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs. And I believe that we have a short presentation from staff, unless I'm mistaken.
Good evening.
And council actually has this packet on their desk, do they not? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kathy Fedler, Housing and Community Investment Division Manager. Sorry, get my papers here. And tonight we're here to have the annual public hearing on the CAPER, or the Consolidated Annual Performance Report, for the HUD programs in particular, and we have combined it along with an affordable housing program update as well. So in your council communication, most of this information should be in there, but there we go. Just briefly, I'd like to highlight for our viewing public. Our CDBG program, our Community Development Block Grant Program, is the one of the main funding sources that we get for affordable housing and ongoing housing programs. Primarily, we use those funds for our homeowner and renter-occupied rehab programs. So in 2018, we assisted 12 households with general rehab funding, which really corrects code violations, addresses health and safety issues, makes energy efficiency improvements for those folks, as well as doing some homeowner requested improvements. We spent a total of $223,269 on this program in 2018. And this just shows you one of the rehab programs that we did, one of the projects where we made an egress window so that the people could get safely out. This room is used as a bedroom. The other part of our homeowner rehab program is an architectural barrier removal program, and it is for owners and renters to make their homes accessible. $105,900 some odd dollars was spent in 2018 to replace toilets, ramps, replace carpet and remove tripping hazards, and converting tubs to walk-in showers. Quite a bit of this funds are used to help the elderly to age in place and be safe in their homes. 20 households were assisted at an average cost of about $5,300. And this just shows, again, one of the projects we did where we took out a regular bathroom, expanded a little bit into the bedroom to make a little bit larger bedroom that was ADA accessible with a walk-in shower. The third rehab program that we operate is a mobile home repair program where we provide grants to mobile home owners to help keep their homes safe and to increase the longevity of the home. We spent about $70,000 on this program, replacing hot water and furnaces, window replacement, roof repairs, and making weatherization improvements. 14 households were assisted in 2018. And then the final rehab program that we operate is an emergency grant program where we provide grants to low-income homeowners to make repairs that pose an immediate and serious threat to the health and safety of the occupants. We spent a total of $14,500 this year, replacing water and furnace, hot water heaters and furnace, electrical repairs, and correcting water and sewer issues. 6 households were assisted. And I do have to say that we're seeing an increase uptick in aging water and sewer pipe failures and blockages. It has become an increasing issue for low and moderate income homeowners to repair, replace. So we're doing a lot more of those than we have in the past. So in total for our rehab program, we spent over $455,000, assisted a total of 40 households at an average cost of $10,300 per household. This is an increase in volume from 2017, where we spent a total of $255,000 and assisted 31 households. We reworked our inspection services to increase productivity, which is something I mentioned last time that we were going, last year that we were going to a new inspection service system. However, something that's still slowing us down is having sufficient number of contractors to bid on these jobs. So we're having to bid the jobs several times in order to get somebody to bid that isn't at an exorbitant price. With our CDBG funds in 2018, we also provided a grant to the Boulder County Housing Counseling Program for $50,000. 246 residents were assisted, and it leveraged that $50,000 leveraged another $350,000. We also funded a security deposit program to support vouchers for homeless folks, and in the amount of $57,000. We did cancel this program, but we're probably going to fund it again in 2019, mostly because the Longmont Housing Authority wasn't able to free up enough vouchers in 2018 for this to work, so we're hoping that we can get it going in 2019. Also with CDBG funds, we started in late 2017, finished up the demolition of the property at 50 East Rogers Road, which if you remember is the old R Center clothing bank. We removed asbestos, demolished the building, removed all the concrete parking surfaces that were in there, and regraded the site. And then if you remember, council donated that lot to Habitat for future development of 2 to 3 townhomes at their August 28th meeting. So a little comparison to past years. We had a 50% expenditure rate of all of our CDBG funds in 2018. In 2017, we're at a 42% expenditure rate. Our 2018 timeless ratio was 1.24. It's required to be at or below 1.5 when HUD does their timeliness check. And in 2017, we were at 1.43, so that's improved somewhat. We leveraged 53 cents for every $1 in CDBG funds. This is down a little bit. In 2017, we leveraged about 79 cents for every dollar. 14.5% of our 2018 funding was spent on administration, and the cap is 20% of our grant. We were at 17.8% in 2017, so that's a little bit better. And then 87.4% of the funding spent in 2018 benefited low and moderate income residents, and we were at 97.8% in 2017. I do want to say on the timeliness ratio, and you'll see in the chart that's coming up next, we are now not getting our CDBG funds until about anywhere between 6 and 9 months after the start of our program. It's really going to be hard to continue to meet the timeliness standard when the funding comes in so late and you have to spend it with the time that's left. So this is getting to be a real issue, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of a solution to it, at least being proposed at this point in time. So that's kind of a heads up. And what you can see in this chart, part of what we're running into is that the far left blue is where we ended up 2017. So the amount of funds that were carried into 2018 from prior grants was about, I cannot read this, 600,000 some. Sorry, I've got a really little one here. The next category is our new 2018 CDBG grant, the red. And then we did get about 55,000 in program income, which is that little tiny purple one. So all those added together is the green chart, which is our total 2018 budget of, I think it's 1.3. And we had 600 and some expenditures in the orange, which leaves 671 in that far right blue, carrying over into 2019. And where I'm concerned is that what we carried in 2018 is less, so we're increasing our carryover into 2019, which is going to keep happening again because of the amount of time that we have to spend the funds. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep trying to spend as much as we can to get that lowered down. For the home program, we started and funded new construction at the Fall River Senior Apartments. About $1.4 million in home consortium funds, $480,000 in home program income was put into this project, along with, you'll see in another slide, some additional local affordable housing funds. This is going to construct 60 rental homes, 52 one-bedroom and 8 two-bedroom units. They'll be 100% affordable to households at or below 50% of the area median income. And it leveraged $6.61 for each dollar of home funds, and that's via the low income housing tax credits and private financing for that project. The affordable housing program, again, we added $120,000 in a loan from the affordable housing fund to this project. We also, the city offset and paid from the affordable housing fund $146,000, almost $700 for water sewer system development fees, and the city waived another $162,400 in other development fees. So altogether, that's over $300,000, almost $400,000 investment as well. We also, in 2018, started on 2 pilot projects. One is a stock plan for accessory dwelling units. So we're going to have 4 different stock plans that will be approved through the city, ready to go, and anyone who wants to do an accessory dwelling unit on their property and is willing to rent at affordable rents can use those stock plans for free, and also get fee waivers and other incentives as well. So we're hoping that might generate some interest in doing those smaller homes and rental housing options. And then we're also funding a planning facilitator to help particularly either individual folks who want to create affordable housing, or some of the smaller developers like the In-Between and even the Habitat to some extent move through the development planning process. If you remember when we first talked about this and council approved it, planning and development services staff really try and work with those folks to help them through the process, but then they're kind of in a weird position where they're giving advice and then having to check things. So we're trying this out with a separate person that we contracted with to help those smaller developers move through that process. And so far we've got 4 in the process, 2 of which are moving through very well. One actually is getting a lot of help from the planning facilitator, and it's really making a big difference. So we're very pleased with that. We also funded the purchase of land for future affordable housing development at the Suites, using $700,000 from the Affordable Housing Fund, and then also loaned Habitat for Humanity $38,000 to purchase a single lot. In addition, fee waivers that were provided were $14,900 for 2 for-sale homes in 2018. Finally, on the administration side of the Affordable Housing Program, we did conduct 4 application cycles in 2018 with 5 individual projects approved for funding. As you know, we started a new inclusionary housing program that was adopted effective 12/24 of 2018, so that is moving forward, and we're getting a lot of inquiries and talking to a lot of different folks. We continue to serve on the Regional Affordable Housing Partnership Steering Committee and all the work that's being done on that group. And then finally, we are at 6.2% of our current housing stock being affordable, with about 2,300 homes deed restricted to date. So this is a big increase from probably the last time you saw this, where we were at like 3 or 4%, because when council approved rental housing being considered affordable at 60% AMI and below, we added a number of units at that 60%, between 51 and 60% mark, which brought us to that 2,300. So that was quick. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions. Otherwise, we can do the public hearing.
Councilmember Finley?
I do have a question, but I also have a comment that planning facilitator is a great idea, and I think that will be very helpful in the future. On the CDBG money, where do the requests for that money come from?
So each year we run through the Housing Advisory Board and get ideas on what we should be using the funding for, what pots of money to set aside the funds for, and then bring that to council as part of setting the budget. We have not done that yet this year because there's...
That's not my question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
My question is, how would someone who needs some of those repairs, for example, apply to get those funds?
Okay, sorry, I thought you meant the overall application.
I know all about that.
Yes, so our the housing rehab program is operated through my office. There is, you can just come to the front desk.
There's an application process?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
That's what I wanted to get
Yeah,
at.
and I think it's online as well.
Okay, great.
Councilmember Waters?
Thanks, Mayor Bagley. Nice job, Kathy. It's a good report. It's really encouraging to see the data. Quickly, I want to follow up just on 2 things. With the planning facilitator, we're contracting those services from an outside agency. What percentage of a full-time person are we contracting for? You said for the 4 projects. Do you have an idea? Is that all of somebody, or is that half of somebody's time?
Well, so we did an RFP, and it was mostly like engineering or planning consultants that were the ones that applied. We did contract with a firm. She is a planner, and we set aside $50,000 for it. So that's probably, at a consultant rate, that's probably less than a part-time position. If it was internal, it probably would be fairly close to half of a position. Right now, we've only spent about, I think it's less than 10,000 of that so far.
What I'm trying to get a handle on is of the 4 projects, how many and I think we've dedicated this planning facilitator to assist with projects that are specifically addressing affordable housing, and with certain kinds of developers, people who are not experienced developers.
Correct.
Is 4 like the total number, or is 4 a percentage of a total number that fit those categories, affordable and non-typical or traditional developers?
So far, the 4 are all of the ones that fit the
So 100%
category.
of them that are in the
So
queue
far,
are being
yep.
assisted. Would you anticipate that for the balance of the year, that $50,000 is enough to cover a planning facilitator for all of those kinds of projects that come in?
That's what it's looking like so far, unless we get a big run on smaller developers, but it's not so far.
So I wish there's probably no way to get there. What I'd really like to get to then is how many more at halftime, if this is, say, a halftime person, how many more could a planning facilitator take on at halftime? Then I can do my own math of how many facilitators would you need to do X number of projects.
Well, so my thought process was, see how this goes, see what we get from it, and how it works, and how many we can assist. The position that we're hiring to work with the developers on the inclusionary housing program side, on the development side, once that person gets established and we get a rhythm and a flow and processes in place, that there probably will be some time freed up that person could then act in this role for that. So we may need some additional contracted time, but my thought is that after maybe a year or 2, we'd be able to cover it with existing positions.
The idea, first of all, just kudos to giving it a try, because I know this is one of those ideas that came up during our deliberations, and whatever, an ombudsman, or what's the role somebody plays that's not a current planning staff member to accelerate the process. And that's what you're testing here. Correct. For a particular class of development. I'm just going to be real interested in do we learn enough to know what's the scale and cost of ramping up, taking to scale, right, that kind of a role to accelerate the development process across the board, especially or just when it's affordable housing. Every affordable housing, right, gets I'm not suggesting that's where we are, but I just think it would be interesting if we can learn our way into that kind of an approach. Yep. So the only other question would be, first of all, I had a question about how did we make such progress from 4.1 to 6.2? You answered the question. We just changed the criteria. But I just what that did was harken back to June 27th or whatever our first conversation was. When we were doing kind of a 5,000-foot view, I think those were your words, of where we are with affordable housing. And as you ran through numbers, you made a point that when we get to 12%, we're still a long way from what we need. We set a target, and good on this council, in my opinion, for setting the target, and that we're keeping track. One of these days, I'd like to get to the point where we could actually set targets and measure our performance against the target, but we're probably not there yet. But once we get to 12%, as I recall, there's still a huge unmet need, even at 12%. Do you recall off the top of your head what that was? Do you remember sharing that number with us?
Yeah, so I think it was based on a 2015 update to the 2013 Housing Needs Assessment, and it was like 3,500 units that needed to be affordable below 30% of area median income. So the very, very low is really where the greatest need is. And by the way, we are going to be in 2019 updating and doing a new housing needs assessment, so that'll give us a better figure.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
To tap onto something they're doing with the ombudsman position, I've also asked Sean to work with Tony to look at it in broader development. That's something I've heard from other council members. While we're learning from this, we're going to look at this other piece too.
All right. Thank you very much, Kathy. Are there any, so seeing that there's no additional questions or comments from council, let's go ahead and open the public hearing on the Consolidated Annual Performance Report, also known as CAPER, for 2018's Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs. Anyone want to speak? All right, seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing on this matter. Is there a motion? Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I move 9E, public hearing on consolidated annual CAPER.
All right, do we have a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and vote. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, let's try to push through one more thing, and then we'll take a break. Items removed from the consent agenda. I believe we took off Councilmember Finley. I think it was item 8H has been removed. And Councilmember Finley, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. The technical review group, all of the folks in the past have had some sort of technical knowledge. Therefore, that was the technical review group. What were the original review? Can you go over what the technical aspect of that was? Like, there were bankers and there were realtors and there were senior advisory board members. The original, I guess.
Yes, and there still are.
Yeah.
So on attachment 2 or 1 of your
I have the list here.
Packet, yes. So
Yeah.
we try and always have housing builders or developers, members of the real estate community, the banking lending community, and then folks who represent special needs populations like the physically handicapped or seniors, and then folks that represent low-income persons or are low-income persons or represent those kinds of populations.
Has there always been a liaison from the board, and does that board elect their liaison, and that's why you're recommending that person?
That's correct.
So they don't have to have any sort of technical expertise?
That's correct. They just serve as that back and forth between the two groups.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, I move 8H.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, let's go ahead. Don't care about you guys, but I need a break. So let's go ahead and take 5 minutes. Nope, I was going to ask, anyone need a break? Well, I need a break, so. Don't mean to cut you off halfway, Harold, but we were on a roll. Let's get back on it. All right, let's go ahead and move on to general business. Item 11A, which is compensation review for the judge. And that's why he's here eyeballing us. And I should disclose that I currently have 4 traffic tickets before the judge presently. No, I'm just kidding. I do not. But let's go ahead and have a brief discussion. I don't know if there's a motion or not, but by way of reminder, the market is the market average for Arvada, Boulder, Broomfield, Fort Collins, Greeley, Lakewood, Loveland, Thornton, Westminster is $158,357. Judge Frick currently is compensated at $140,400, a difference of $17,957. And the judge, while we were speaking with him in his performance evaluation, he had actually indicated that he felt that $156,278, which was last year's county court compensation, he thought would be fair. And we had a discussion. We did not vote, but we left that room and said we'd continue the discussion. Is there a motion or a comment? All right, I would like to move that we actually increase the judge's compensation to $156,278, which is the actual compensation mentioned by the judge for county court positions. He's not county court, but I would also point out that that is still below the market average for municipal judges in the area. So, all right, I made the motion. Councilmember Martin has seconded it, and Mayor Pro Tem has thirded it. Seeing no further discussion or debate, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you for your work, good sir. He's leaving going, I had to wait that long for that. Actually, no, you waited that long for that. That's not bad. Good day, yeah. Stick around for the rest of the evening. All right, let's move on to tonight's main event. Ding, ding. No, just kidding. 11B, proposed changes to the Longmont Fair Campaign Practices Act. And we would like to welcome back Valerie Skitt, our one-time city clerk. We miss you, Val. Although she doesn't like Val. She's never corrected me. She's always allowed me to say Val, but I know it's Valerie. So in public, it should be Ms. Skitt or Valerie. Don Quintana, you are assisting. I believe council has we all have a handout of tonight's presentation. And I believe we're going to go over the motions that council has made and then talk about what we need to do to move forward. So the time is yours, city clerk and ex-city clerk. What? Yes, clerk emeritus. That does. Yeah, clerk emeritus.
Good evening, Mayor Bagley.
Good evening.
Members of council, Don Quintana, city clerk. I have with me Valerie Skitt, city clerk emeritus, as you just noted, and Teresa Tate, city attorney's office. We're here to present about the Longmont Fair Campaign Practices Act.
There it is right there.
We do have a presentation that walks through basically what's in your council communication. I assume you'd like us to go ahead and make that for the benefit of for the public's benefit, for TV land benefit, or we can skip straight to discussion.
Briefly, and then just walk through your presentation. I reviewed it. It looks pretty good. And we'll let you go through it, and we can talk about the questions as we go along. It seemed pretty
good. We'll do that. All right. Thank you.
Logical.
So, in 2018, just to refresh your memory, council directed Valerie to do some research and bring back information on how to revise the Longmont Fair Campaign Practices Act. Valerie did that, and on August 28th, 2018, she brought 8 recommendations to council that resulted in 10 motions that council made. And on March 5th, you all directed us to hurry up and bring those back to you so you could remember what that discussion was. So the way we've organized the conversation is we went in order of those 10 motions in the order that they show in your minutes. So the first motion you made was to change the contribution limits to, let me just get there, was to change contribution limits to $240 per person, whether it be a person or an other than natural person. And we made that edit in section 2.04.204 regarding contribution. So that edit shows in the draft ordinance that we provided in your packet. The second motion council made was to add a contribution and expenditure report 30 days prior to the election, as Valerie recommended to you all. That was to add additional reporting and additional transparency in contributions and expenditures. That really is accomplished in 2.04.207 under disclosures, where you'll see that 30 days has been added. Just gonna keep cruising. The third motion you all made was to add a contribution and expenditure report for candidates that have declared candidacy, that they must file a report on the first of the month following declaration.
So you don't want to declare on the 30th or 31st.
Because the next day you'd have to file a report.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that would have them reporting on a monthly basis up until they are certified by the clerk, which happens in August. After nomination petitions are circulated, that's August 6th through 26th this year. So those changes were drafted in 2.04.207 as well under disclosures. The fourth motion was to amend the independent expenditure report form, and I included a draft copy in your packet, and we highlighted, you asked us to add a section where an individual could certify that they used only their own funds and they weren't accepting contributions. We did make that amendment to the form for you to have a look at. The fifth motion was that no fine shall be levied until a notice has been issued and the person has had 7 business days to cure the issue. Some amendments were made to 2.04.211 under violations and civil fines to accomplish that task. And we can talk more about each of these later. Motion 6 was that fines shall not exceed the amount that the municipal court is allotted, which is currently a maximum of $999. Again, there were amendments made to the violations and civil fines section to cap those fine amounts at $999. The seventh motion you made was to allow the municipal judge discretion to adjust fines upon appeal. That also was an amendment in the violations and civil fines section of the draft ordinance. Your eighth motion was that fines should not be cumulative. Previously, they compounded, added upon each other, and got to be some big fines. Those changes were made also in 2.04.211, violations and civil fines. The ninth motion you made was that candidates could carry over their funds and use them for a different candidacy for municipal office, where they would basically donate any leftover funds from one campaign for one seat and close that committee and donate them to your new committee for your next run as mayor or whatever that may be. We made some...
or Ward 1.
Or Ward 1, yes. Have made amendments in section 2.04.205A1 regarding unexpended campaign contributions. And the final motion you made on August 28th was that issue committees may remain open as long as they keep filing reports as required by this act. And actually that ability exists. We didn't need to make any changes in the draft ordinance to accomplish that. So that is the direction you gave us very briefly on August 28th. So staff put together a draft ordinance to hopefully that you allow you to review and see what that might look like exactly. As we did that, we came up on 7 other questions that we had for you. And if you'd like me to go straight to those questions, Mayor, you want me to pause for questions or keep going?
No, keep going.
Okay. I'll review all 7 questions and then we can pause on each of them individually, but I'll just read them first. So the first question we came upon was, would council like to remove language regarding the development and trademarking of an indicia? Secondly, would council like to add a reporting requirement 60 days prior to the election so there's not a gap in reporting in the month of September? Third is, does council want to eliminate electioneering communication reporting requirements entirely? The fourth was with regard to your 6th motion, Were you satisfied with the language as drafted in the ordinance that caps the fine at $999 per cycle per person, candidate, or committee? Just to add some specificity there. And then the fifth one was regarding your seventh motion. We ask if you'd like to add a legal standard to give the judge a little guidance in when he might consider making an adjustment to those fines. Our sixth question was, what would the effective date be for this ordinance? And then the last question was regarding your intent regarding the clerk's role, proactive versus a reactive role. So those are our questions. And we're on to number one. So would council like to remove, when we'd ask for direction on each of these points, would council like to remove language regarding the development trademarking of an indicia? And I just took wording, I think from Valerie's original report, that it has never been used, nobody's ever asked for it, and staff has had trouble actually trademarking that as was originally intended. So that's our first question.
What was the intent of that? It just seems weird. Do you remember? I'm sure you've forgotten, but if there's a black box in front of you, if you push the button on the far lower right, Ms. Skit, that actually works the microphone.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
The election wasn't a task force that was put together to develop those changes originally, asked for that indicia. They were looking for, I'm not exactly sure what it was they were trying to accomplish. All it really did accomplish was just say, here's an indicia. If you sign up to file all the appropriate paperwork with the city clerk, you can put it on there. It shows the community that you have the paperwork filed. They have to file anyway. It really accomplished not much. And nobody ever asked to use it. They could use it in their printed ads and things like that. A lot of people, you know, they have to put all the required information in their printed ad, and that really doesn't do anything except say they file their paperwork. So.
All right, cool. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a motion?
Oh, no.
Or go ahead and push.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm having trouble understanding what you're meaning by indicia because it's used differently in the publishing business. But if it's like a stamp,
it was just a small little logo that we developed, and we did develop one, we just never trademarked it, and then nobody ever used it.
Oh, well then let's eliminate it.
Is that a motion?
Okay.
Is that a motion?
I move that we eliminate all language regarding the development and trademarking of an indicia.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote.
Yay, Sandy.
That passes unanimously. Good job, Ms. Cedar.
The second question we had for you, council members, is if council would like to add an additional reporting requirement 60 days prior to the election. And the reason, as we looked at, if you add the first of the month report for candidates after they declare, and then you added the 30 days prior to the election, somebody seemingly that would announce, let's say in May, would have to file a report June 1st, July 1st, August 1st. There'd be nothing in September, and they would then again file October 6th, which would be 30 days prior. So it leaves September kind of out there, and it just seemed odd. We just thought we'd ask the question.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I would like to not add one because September is the worst month and we could use a vacation.
Okay.
Councilmember Peck. All right, so it's been, so just to repeat, because your microphone wasn't on. So just to repeat, Councilmember Peck has moved that we add a reporting requirement 60 days prior to the election so that there's not a gap in reporting for the month of September.
Thank you, because I didn't have my mic on. No one heard that.
Okay, but you did make that motion.
I certainly did.
Okay. All right, that's not been seconded. I did. Oh, you seconded it. Okay, all right, it's been moved and seconded. Now we're going to actually have to debate and think. Way to go, Councilmember Peck. All right, can you clear the voting? Because I just want to see if there's anybody else. All right, so there's nobody in the queue. I guess we should just go ahead and vote, I guess. Let's vote. Nope, it's not working. Sorry, I screwed you all up. Got your mojo off.
You need help, Sandy?
Valerie, could you please help? I'm half kidding. But there are, I mean, just to say, I am getting things on this screen I have never seen before. So.
You sure, Sandy? There we go. We don't usually show it.
Councilmember Martin, you still haven't voted. All right. Oops. That passes. Oh, wait a second. I got to read it. Oh, actually, yeah, okay. So it passed 5-2 with Councilmember Finley and Councilmember Martin against. No time off for us, apparently.
The third point that we ask for clarification on is regarding electioneering communication reporting requirements. So in your motion from August 28th, and we lay this out in the council communication, your motion was to add the 30-day reporting requirement, 30 days prior to the election. In the discussion, you'd talk about eliminating the redundant need to report on an electioneering communication report, but it actually was not in the motion. So we just wanted to be clear on that point. We'd also note that if you eliminated electioneering communication reporting requirements for candidates, political committees would still need to potentially file them depending on what they are about.
But technically, the same information would be included on your monthly reports.
Correct.
Including September.
Including September, yes.
I pay attention.
Yes.
All right. So I see people in the queue. Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. So I would like a definition of electioneering communication.
That is in, let me just point you to it. It
Ms.
is on
Tate.
Okay.
If you'll look at page 2 of the draft ordinance, there's a definition section where electioneering communication is defined. And you need to move to page 3 as well because it tells you what electioneering communication is not as well.
Could you read that for the audience? That's the reason I asked the question, so that everybody would know, those who might want to run, who's watching TV?
Yes. Absolutely. So our code defines an electioneering communication as any communication which is distributed that, 1, refers to a clearly identified candidate. The candidate is considered to be clearly identified if the candidate's picture appears or the candidate's identity is apparent by clear reference, and is distributed within 90 days before a city election or special election, and is distributed to an audience that includes members of the electorate for such public office. The following shall not be considered an electioneering communication: any news articles, editorial endorsements, opinion or commentary writings, including all electronic communications or letters to the editor printed in a newspaper, magazine, or other periodical not owned or controlled by a candidate or agent of a candidate committee or political committee. Also not an electioneering communication is any endorsement or opinions aired by any broadcast facility, including cable or satellite not owned or controlled by a candidate or agent of a candidate committee or political committee. In addition, an electioneering communication is not any communication by persons made in the regular course and scope of their business, or any communication made by a membership organization solely to members of such organization and their families. And finally, a communication which constitutes an independent expenditure is not an electioneering communication.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I think this is the one that has actually caused the most problems through the years. First of all, as technology has changed, the definition of distribution has changed from being a paper item that you could hold in your hand to being also including anything on the radio, anything on television, anything on the internet, and because there is in this thing, in the electioneering communication, it says the report is due within 72 hours after the communication produced by the expenditure is distributed. That's almost impossible to determine these days because you can have a due date when you when it's finished, if it's a an actual postcard or printed matter, it can be produced at a certain date. You may send it to a mailing house, or the printer may send it to a mailing house. You have no idea when it's actually being distributed. So the idea that most certainly the idea of the 72 hours really should be eliminated and should be more like 2 weeks, because you need that amount of flexibility because it's simply impossible to determine when a third party who's distributing it possibly will be actually distributing it. And does that mean when they send it or when someone would get it? I mean, that part of it is, I'm not in favor of eliminating this, and here's why. This is where people hide their money, and this is when people get deals from other people who will pay for their postage for them, and it will not be included in anything, or they will pay for their printing for them, and it will not be included in anything. And perhaps people don't understand that if they haven't done production management for printing and for communications, but I do, and I see how they're reporting that they are reporting that the entirety of something costs less than the postage would actually cost. So this is where people are actually not being honest. However, what we have right now is something that is labeled Notice of Independent Expenditure or Electioneering Communication. When I first read this as a candidate, and when Jeff Moore read this as a candidate, both of us thought, oh, well, this isn't an independent expenditure, so we don't need to report on this. Well, because this is actually two things. This is independent expenditure and or electioneering communication. It should be one thing for an independent expenditure, and it should be another thing for an electioneering communication. And while it may seem that you're duplicating this in the expenditure report, and you are not necessarily doing that. This is the way that people get away with a lot of stuff. That's all I'm saying. We used to have a report from the printer. That way, if somebody said they were going to get a job printed of, say, 50,000 items, and they were getting the price for actually 2,000 items, you could see that. But you can't see it anymore because we don't have that level of reporting anymore. So in a sense, it's, we really have to depend on the honor of people, I guess. But I would not really vote for eliminating this. I would just break it up into independent expenditure and electioneering communication as two separate things, because it is misleading, I think, to new candidates that they may not think they have to fill this out.
A quick question: Are in-kind donations not reportable?
In-kind donations absolutely are
Okay,
reportable.
that's what I thought. Just double checking. So would the Mayor Pro Tem's concern be
If somebody donated the postage or they donated some piece of that product, yes, absolutely. It should be, the value of that donation should have been reported as an in-kind contribution. That goes on the expenditure report, not on the election.
So unless they lie, it would still get reported once a month on your reports.
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Waters.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Take me to the, I'm looking for the part that's that spot in the ordinance that requires the 72-hour reporting. Mayor Pro Tem, can you point me to a page number? Or
under disclosures.
It's at 2.04.206.5.
give me a page number.
Page 7, at the very bottom of the page.
That's where I am. What am I missing?
It's,
well, it's lined out.
It is, that's right.
Oh, that's why I thought we were not reading what was lined out. So what is the intent in terms of the reporting schedule under the proposed language? It's not 72 hours then.
The proposed language eliminates electioneering communications
altogether
reports, because those are reports that are filed by the candidates.
Yeah.
Independent expenditure reports, which are basically the same thing but not paid for or authorized by the candidate, is somebody else spending money, which I think is where the confusion that Councilmember Christensen was talking about. When staff developed the form is identical, so we just added the words "or electioneering communication," caused the confusion she was talking about to the candidate. It's the same. It would be the same form. You could have two separate forms, one for electioneering communications, one for independent expenditures, but if candidates no longer have to file them, you'll see that form's been changed back to just independent expenditures.
So just to,
and independent.
You saw the floor, sorry.
Well, having gone through that process of producing two separate formats, the exact same information, that seemed unnecessarily redundant. If we were going to do it and require that there be a reporting period, 72 hours doesn't make sense to me. 3 working days would make sense to me, but 72 hours doesn't. If something goes out of the post office on a Friday before Labor Day, as an example, then you get 8 hours to report, not 72, because you got to do it on Tuesday, right? The first working day after holiday. I mean, the hours don't make sense. Now, frankly, you know, this is not a big deal to me, but the redundancy does seem unnecessary.
So just, the queue's long, just to jump in real quick and offer a suggestion. What about the following, right? Where you do away with the electioneering communications, because we're reporting that as candidates, along with our treasurers or campaign managers or whatever, once a month, right, during the campaign. And then, so if we do away with the electioneering communication reporting requirements, we are still, I mean, we don't have to hurry up and file something within 72 hours, just every 30 days we're reporting everything that's ongoing. And then why don't we also make independent expenditures by third candidates also do at the same time, and they also have to fill out a report?
Mayor, if I might, the independent expenditures is the also on page 7, one section above the electioneering paragraph Councilmember Waters was just referring to. Political committees would still need to refile those. It's very similar. It's a redundant report.
What I'm saying is you get rid of the independent third-party requirement reporting within 70. Everyone gets out of it except that every month you have to report whatever you've done, whether you're a candidate or whether you're an independent third party supporting somebody, and then they're just all due on the same day.
So all committees would be required to report on the same time frame.
Well, that's committees, but I'm talking about I'm talking about the independent expenditure report.
Can I clarify?
Go ahead.
So committees, like a political committee, right now would have to file the contribution expenditure reports and the independent expenditure reports. But they are not the only ones that file independent expenditure reports. It could be an individual in the community that spent money. They don't have to file any contribution expenditure reports, so you still need an independent expenditure report, at least for those folks that are spending money, advocating for a candidate, that are not part of a committee.
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is just make the due date once a month Everybody, the due date for that is due at the same time, same month for everybody.
Instead of 72 hours.
Instead of 72 hours. That way, candidates,
Understand.
independent expenditure, third-party individuals, and political action committees all have to turn it in on the same day once a month. Yeah, Ms. Tate?
If I may just ask a clarifying question. So is the idea then that someone would need to report an independent expenditure the month following the independent expenditure?
Right.
And if they've not made any more, then they wouldn't have to file any
Correct.
subsequent
They wouldn't
reports?
have to. It's just the independent expenditure report would be due on that day.
Thanks.
Does anyone, I move that. All right. Any other questions or comments? So restating them with the vote screen already popped up. So again, the motion is that all reports, political action committees, independent third-party reporting, as well as candidate monthly reports would all be due at the same time once a month in alignment with what is currently presented, what is required by us.
Same date, same
Yep.
frequency.
All right, let's vote.
It would be on the same dates, so candidates, so for the committees, the dates, I'd have to pull up my comm. I outlined it in the actual dates this election cycle would be 60 days before the election, September 6th, 30 days before the election, October 6th, 21 days before the election, October 15th, 14 days before the election, October 22nd, the Wednesday before the election, October 30th, and then 30 days after the election, December 5th.
And then,
So on those same dates.
And also, what if someone declares tomorrow, for example? Then they'd have to report, assuming this were the law, the first of each month.
But an independent expenditure would not be a candidate. They would be somebody advocating for or against a candidate.
I personally think that if they're going to spend it once the candidate declares, it needs to be reported.
Okay.
Right?
Is that clear? Okay.
So let me restate the motion, which is, let's try this again. I'm going to take back my motion and let me restate it if you don't mind. So the motion is that third-party independent expenditure reporting, political action committees, and campaign reports will all be due on the dates that you just stated, in addition to the first of the month.
Yes.
If preceding those dates, in the event a candidate has declared.
And they're regarding that candidate.
Correct. All right. Do I have a second?
Understood.
All right. All right. Let's vote. All right, that passes with Mayor Pro Tem against. But yes, that would eliminate it, but it also gives us, you're reporting it once a month. All right, I want to move on to clarification requested number 4.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the fourth question we have was with regard to your sixth motion, if that's not confusing. We just wondered, we drafted some language in the ordinance regarding a little bit more clarification around the $999 cap. Wonder if that specification would be helpful. The draft ordinance reads, in no event shall the maximum total combined fines for all violations of this section by a single person, candidate, or committee during a single election cycle exceed $999. Your motion was just that fines would not exceed $999. And we felt that a little more clarity there would be helpful when implementing
The Latin term is oomph.
Oomph.
Oomph, yes. Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I believe earlier in the discussion, you said 9,999. Was that
My
just-
apologies. That was a misstatement. 999.
So it's under $1,000,
Yes.
no matter what. Okay, thank you.
Let's get out our checkbooks tonight. No, just kidding. All right. Do we have a motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
I move that we adopt the language that you have put in here. In no event shall the maximum total combined fines for all violations of this selection by a single person, candidate, or committee during a single election cycle exceed $999.
Second. Let's vote. Before, actually, let's don't vote. Dialogue and debate is not over, appears. Councilmember Waters.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Before we vote on this, I guess I'd just like to be clear on what our intent is. The intent would be that if somebody does not comply with the Campaign Act, misses or whatever, misreports, the clerk would be authorized to levy a $999 fine for whatever that combination is. Relief from that would be an appeal to the judge. It would be the intent of the council to collect fines.
It'd be my intent. $999 is digestible, meaning that my whole point all along, I've said that it's an anvil hanging over anyone. I mean,
you understand the reason for my question?
Yeah, I don't. Councilmember Waters, why do you ask the question?
Well, because this council chose not to collect fines, so the council is going to do this and then decide it is going to collect fines.
Well, I think me personally, the reason why I didn't want to collect fines from
whatever the reasons are.
No, but my point is 16,000 was a lot. And I've always, if we don't change it, who's going to run for mayor? Who's going to run against you? I wouldn't run. I don't want to pay $16,000 for a job that pays $1,500 a month.
I would just rather be clear, if I'm going to vote on this, that we're voting on it with the intent that we're going to implement the law. Because apparently that wasn't the case on the part of an earlier council.
Agreed.
Councilmember Peck. Be clear.
I was under the understanding that was a one-time event, that we weren't going to collect that specific fine. I didn't think that in this new reclassification of everything that we were going to make it, that we were always going to collect the fines from this point on by making it tenable. Does that make sense? I thought when we excused that fine, it was because it was so out of range, and that's why we're coming back. But from this point on, I'm assuming we are going to collect fines. Is that what everyone else thinks? Okay, I think this is solid.
Yeah, and then the paper. I had a $200 violation, and it made the paper. So 900. I think the whole point is peer pressure and public pressure. The public should be holding us accountable, along with the the 8th and 9th members of council, Scott Converse and John Fryer. $999 is, I think, plenty.
Can I weigh back in?
You sure can.
I don't object. I'm not disagreeing with that. I just was a little confusing sitting up there and watching this as a candidate, watching it unfold. And I just want to make certain we're clear, and that we don't fast forward and then for some reason we're not going to collect fines again, and we give someone a pass. I just think we need to be consistent, since the council has not been.
I would agree with that. All right, there's a motion on the floor. Was it seconded?
Yes.
All right, let's vote. All right, that passes unanimously. So, theoretically, it just dawned on me that you don't have to do anything, and as long as you're willing to, put up with the public harassment and write a check for $999, you don't have to hire a campaign manager or do anything. I guess that is a point, right? So, but hopefully, Mr. Fryer, you'll hold us accountable, or those who decide to run. All right, want to keep going?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Clarification number 5 is regarding motion number 7. Similar to the last one, just a question whether you'd like to add a little more criteria around your motion. Your motion was to give the judge some discretion when adjusting fines on an appeal. Staff wondered if you wanted to add any clarification there, such as for good cause or excusable neglect. And I would turn to Teresa for those definitions if you need those.
I would actually, nobody's in the queue. So my concern, Mike, one of the questions that came up when we're talking about this is what happens if you have a violation that you cannot cure, right? So for example, I forgot to put paid for by Bagley for mayor and wound up paying $200, right? So under this law, the city clerk would have to give us an opportunity, I think 7 days to fix it. Well, how do you fix that? Or what happens if so me personally, I like the fact that the judge could say excusable neglect, but I also think that if there's a 7-day period to fix it, that the city clerk should give some type of penance to fix it before implementing a fine. For example, publish in the newspaper the ad with the corrected language, and just leave it up to the city clerk. I think the judge should be allowed to, excusable neglect just means, you were negligent, but I understand. You were on vacation, or you fell asleep at the dinner table, or your printer, you told him, but he didn't put in the change. Just basically, the judge would have some discretion other than a mandatory, nope, guilty. Thoughts? Councilmember Peck?
So let me just have some clarification. So if the city clerk fines someone, they have 7 days to cure that fine, correct?
The way this is written, it would be a notice with 7 days to cure, and then a notice of violation following that if they did not cure.
So,
did I misquote that? Correct me, please.
So a notice of violation would be issued when someone is not in compliance with one of the rules, but they would have 7 days to cure that.
So at what point during that time period does it go to the judge?
So 14 days after the notice of violation, within 14 days of that notice of violation, the person or committee can file an appeal. So someone could do it the very next day and appeal what the clerk has issued.
At that point, does the violation, for example, if they're fined and the person then files an appeal immediately, does that stop the violation, the notice of violation?
As it's currently written, it does not. What stops the violation is a cure.
So I think we need to amend this then, that, how would you say it, that if an appeal was made and it was an excusable neglect or whatever that term was, then that needs to stop the violation, because they can't cure it if it is something that Mayor Bagley mentioned. For example, if they get fined on Tuesday and they write you saying that it's they can't cure it because they've already gone out, the printer is sent out the information, then why would we come back if they're going to appeal that in 7 more days with a violation and fine them again? It needs to be an excusable appeal and not have a double fine. That would be cumulative.
No, there wouldn't be a double fine.
Oh,
Mayor?
isn't it a double
No.
fine on the violation?
No.
I thought it was.
Mayor, Councilmember Peck, the way it is currently written is that the violation issues, there are 7 days to cure. If the violation is not cured, then the fine for the violation is imposed, and there is a fine for the failure to cure. That's the way the motion read, and so that's the way this is currently written.
But both of them could not total more than $999.
That's correct,
Together,
Mayor.
total, right?
Mayor, that's correct.
Okay.
And then Mayor, Councilmember Peck, to your point about the appeal, there does need to be something to appeal. And so until the notice of violation issues, but until that 7 days elapses, no fine has been imposed. So it's a little unclear exactly what someone would be appealing.
So you're saying, So you're, just to clarify, you're saying that the motion as stated, I don't remember who made it, says that there's a violation, that you notice a violation, then 7 days later, if you don't cure it, you're hit with a fine, but then there's another fine for having failed to cure it? Is that what we intended?
Yeah, I have a problem with that in that when is the fine due? Is it after the judge rules on it? Or is it
Only if
when it's due, if you appeal?
Mayor, Councilmember Peck. So the fine is due upon notice of violation. However, there's an opportunity to cure. If it's cured, no fine is due at all. If it's not cured, then the fine would be imposed. And currently, a fine for the failure to cure would also be imposed. And those are appealable at that time. While something is on appeal, it is not collected.
Okay. That answers my question, I think.
Councilmember Waters?
Thank you, Mayor Bagel. Let's build on this stay with it just for a minute. So there's a notice of a violation. It happens to be a violation that's not curable, the example that the mayor offered. So the mayor comes in and says, I'm willing to stand at the center of Main, the corner of Main and 3rd with a sandwich board, profess my sins, and ask for forgiveness. And you say, not good enough. Mayor get to appeal that? Is the decision of the clerk appealable? As well as whatever fine the clerk levies appealable?
As Mayor and Councilmember Waters, as this is written, a clerk's notice of violation is appealable.
So how could there be a fine? So to answer your question, what's appealable is a decision that I think is unfair, because you're not going to fine me until I've had a chance to appeal the decision. You can't impose a fine if your decision's on appeal, correct? Well, I need an answer to the question. How could
May
I be?
address the question,
How could a fine?
Mayor?
Yes, you can.
Teresa, go ahead.
Mayor, Councilmember Waters, it is the decision and the fine together that are appealable.
So I'm appealing both the decision and the fine. I think the decision was wrong and the fine's unfair.
As the code is currently written and as it was written before, that is the case.
So something that's simply not curable, the candidate's only shot is to propose something as a solution. The clerk makes a judgment whether it's good enough, because you're not curable. You're not going to cure the kind of situation that the mayor described earlier. So you're going to make a judgment, and that's not a good enough effort. So now we're negotiating what's a good enough effort, right? That's a funny position to be in, I think, because I get to appeal it.
I don't think right now that it allows, if it's curable, it's curable, but if it's not curable, you're done.
So I can make no offer.
You can make no offer.
No
currently.
chance.
There's no chance.
As it's currently written, that is not there, correct?
Mayor, and that's why the question for clarification is before council about the judge's discretion, and whether you all would like to add some standard to that, because it would be the judge who gets, under your current motion and as drafted, or rather under your previous motion and as drafted, the judge would be the person with the discretion to determine whether or not that fine could be adjusted up or down.
So just to say that somebody makes a mistake, there are some errors that could occur, like in the last election cycle, that are fatal because there's no curing and there's no solution. You make that decision, it's a death penalty. You're going to get fined
for $990.
Well, that's
and public embarrassment.
Yeah, that seems a little arbitrary and capricious to me.
I would, but although, actually, go ahead, Councilmember Martin.
Idea, I was still there.
I wouldn't forget about you.
I wanted to understand the timeline because. And there is this odd conflation with the judgment and the fine, that it seems like there should be 2 intervals instead of 1 interval going on. So you get this notice to cure, and then you get you have the imposition of the fine if you don't cure, then it seems that you need another interval to either pay the fine or appeal the fine. They're two the two events ought to be separate, and you should be able to, as Councilmember Waters is suggesting, propose a cure in the case where you can't suck all the letters back in and print a legend at the bottom. But you could take out an ad in the paper that says, excuse me, these letters you got, here's a facsimile of it, and it was paid for by my campaign committee.
Although I'd rather just write the check. That seems a public mea culpa.
Well, I might make a different judgment than you, but then I'm living on a fixed income. So, yeah, so can we do that? Can we put in 2 time intervals there and have a possibility to propose or appeal a cure?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Mayor, Councilmember Martin, you asked about the timeline, and to lay the timeline out chronologically, you have a reporting requirement, let's say at the first of the month, right? You fail to file that, or you make an error, right? Or some other mistake happens that is at the clerk's attention. The clerk will issue a notice of violation. That notice of violation starts the clock ticking. Within 7 days of that notice of violation, you can cure the violation. Also, within 14 days of that notice of violation, you can appeal. So, you get your notice of violation. 7 days later, you haven't cured. You still have 7 more days to file your appeal. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, although you used an example that's really easy to cure. You can just file the report. But if you send out a mailing that's not compliant, that's a whole different ball of wax when it comes to curing. So what you didn't address was the potential for discussion on what might constitute a cure.
Councilmember Martin, there's no previous motion with respect to any details about how to cure the situations in which that might happen. Only direction that there should be 7 days to cure. Certainly, we're happy to make any changes that the council would like to bring more clarity to that opportunity to cure.
I don't know if I've got given up the floor or not, but I don't really want to have to bring this back and start a whole Megillah about it. But can you suggest a phrase that would, that, as you suggested, would open up an opportunity like that?
I suppose the question is whether the council is looking to vest the city clerk with the discretion to determine what cures or not. If that's the case, if you make a motion like that, we can certainly draft language that would be appropriate. I hesitate to draft on the fly. That seems like a foolhardy endeavor. But certainly, if that is the intent and that's the motion, we can find appropriate language.
I would actually move that we direct staff to come up with a solution wherein if a violation is not directly curable, that the clerk shall be given the authority to provide a reasonable manner by which the candidate or that person or organization being required to file a report or other requirement under the law be provided a manner by which they can correct the error, even if it's not a direct cure.
So just to clarify, if I might, Mayor, your motion is that the city clerk would come up with a reasonable cure depending on what the violation would be.
Correct.
Not that it would come to council, not that it would go anywhere else, the clerk's discretion.
Mm-hmm.
Or could the candidate also make a suggestion?
Yeah, sure. I imagine it'd be a little bit of negotiating going on, begging.
I think in how we word this motion is places the burden in a certain place. So if we put the burden on the city clerk to suggest how this might be cured, that's different than if we put the burden on the candidate to approach the city clerk with options for cure or a suggestion for curing. So I throw that out there for your
So
consideration.
moved. The motion wasn't seconded, so moved. She suggested a motion, and I made a motion. I say move, yeah, it was brilliant. It's so easy. Keep your head down, down, down. No, the Mayor Pro Tem?
I would rather put this in the hands of the judge and just give him, as we were originally asked to do, clarification in giving him the right to adjust the amount for something like good cause or excusable neglect.
Councilmember Waters?
Thanks, Mayor Bagley. First of all, I like the motion. Because it seems in the absence of an option like this, if you're going to make a big mistake, make it early. That's the lesson here. That's the message. Because if I make a big mistake early, I get a pass for the entire rest of the campaign. Other than my goodwill, once I've been fined $999, I'm under no obligation to do anything, am I? That would be other than my honor, right? So you want to comply. I think creating a reason to resolve it, just in the interest of accountability, makes sense, rather than make your big one early and then skate the rest of the way.
I also think if you're willing to pay the $999 voluntarily to make a council member stand on a corner with a sandwich sign would be awesome. That would provide revenue. You know, if you give $999 to the city to see the mayor stand on the corner with some stupid sign, I think that's phenomenal. Anyway, just kidding. All right, Councilmember Martin?
Thank you. I think that approaching with a cure is a good idea, a suggested cure, because otherwise, if the only thing to appeal is the fine, then there's no motivation to cure, and the reason for these notices and so on is for informing the public of what's going on. And so I think, if it's a sandwich board is a little bit of an extreme example, but a notice in both papers would be a good thing. Anything like that that would have the effect of correcting the record for the people. You could even put a notice in your next filing that this error was made. Anything like that would be a cure, and people would understand. And there are people, as I found out, that read those disclosures every time they're filed. And so I think we absolutely have to have a cure opportunity involved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. All right, somebody hasn't voted. All right, that passes unanimously. All right, I'd also like to move that in the event that there is an appeal, that the judge in his decision-making shall be permitted to adjust or waive financial penalties if good cause is shown, or in the event that he finds that the non-compliance was a result of excusable neglect. And just for my understanding of good cause is you had a good reason for doing it, meaning both my hands were smashed by rocks and I couldn't type and I couldn't find a computer, or I don't know, whatever. And then excusable neglect means, yeah, I could have done it, but I had a really, there's a reason why I was neglectful. So I think that gives the municipal judge plenty of latitude. Exactly. My kids were supposed to do it, and instead they put them in the toaster. All right, let's go ahead and vote. That was Councilmember Martin. All right, that passes unanimously. On to 6.
On to 6, and we are almost there.
Yeah, sure. Councilmember Peck?
If people wouldn't mind, based upon the last discussion, I would like to go back to number 4. When we say that council is satisfied with the language that caps the maximum fee at $999, we have been talking about $999 as though that is going to be the fine for everything. So I would like to add the same type of verbiage that we put in number 5, that the fine is, that the city clerk defines the amount of the fine per the. Are they all set in
They're
ordinance?
all set. It just is
Well,
capped. It's just when you add them
yeah,
all up. till
I
it
didn't know they
hits.
were set. Thanks, bye.
Could not exceed. Thank you, Council. I'll move
Bye.
quickly. Thank you.
I'm out of here.
You have to go home? Oh, you're kidding. That's all, folks. You leave on a good note. Leave on a good note. Make a joke, then leave.
Mayor and council members, clarification number 6 is what is the effective date for the revised LFCPA? If, did I miss something? Teresa looks alarmed. No, okay.
I think.
Well, I'll come back.
I think it should be 10 days after second reading of this ordinance.
Normal protocol.
Normal
Yes.
protocol.
Would
No
you
need to
like
vote because that's normal protocol.
Would you like to vote on that, or is that a consensus?
I think it's a consensus. Anyone disagree? Yes, so consensus is follow the protocol.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Ms. Quintana. By the way, guys, if you're not paying attention, be nice to Dawn Quintana during campaign season. She's the city clerk. She's the one who will make us stand on the corner with sandwich boards.
If I may, Mayor and council members, my legal advisor wonders if there is additional clarity regarding the fines. And let me see if I capture the question correctly, just circling back. Oh, I'm sorry. On the fines, there is a, is there a fine for a notice? There's not a fine for a notice of violation. For getting a notice of violation? For failure to file? Fine for the, so I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Can you help me? Thank you.
So back in August, council directed that there shall be, if the candidate doesn't cure, so a notice of violation issued, and then there's a failure to cure that violation, that the original fine would be imposed, and there's a fine for the failure to cure. There was some conversation that made it sound like there's some confusion about that. I just want to make sure that as currently drafted in the draft ordinance, we're good.
Councilmember Martin?
I was actually in the queue for clarification request number 7. So I don't have anything to say to this one other than I think it's fine the way it is.
But you're in the queue, saving your spot.
Yeah, I'm still
You
in
called
the
your
queue.
spot. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Councilmember Waters?
Yeah, just to clarify, whatever the violation, there's a violation. You have a period to cure. And by the way, whether you cure or not, you're going to get fined. Cure it the next day, you're going to get fined. Is that what the current? Well, I thought you said there are 2 fines. Notice of violation is a fine.
May I clarify?
You may.
If you fail to cure it, then a fine is imposed.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. There is no fine if you cure.
Yes, Councilmember Waters, that's correct.
Thank you.
But you double down if you don't.
Cure.
It's a sort of all or nothing game.
It's all or nothing. Councilmember, hold on a second. Councilmember Rodriguez, you were in the queue and you got out. And I'm going to ask that whatever it was you were thinking, you share it.
All right, thank you, Mayor Bagley. I was just going to say that due to the conversation we had regarding clarification requested for number 5, I believe, and the whole concept of the alternative cure that we just moved and approved, that having that second fine for non-cure becomes even more of incentive to find the alternative cure outside of just saying I'm going to pay the $999 and be done with it all. And so I think that my understanding was that was appropriate and that I was in agreement with keeping it that way.
Great. That's actually a very good point. Thank you. Are you in the queue now or for number 7? All right, let's go on to number 7 then.
All right, thank you, Mayor and council members. Last clarification point is a clarification for you all about the clerk's role as a proactive looking for violations role or as a reactive. In the past, the clerk has functioned based on complaints and done a cursory review to make sure all the columns are filled out on reports and that it's signed and those kind of things, but not necessarily a detailed review to make sure that everything is there. And so staff is requesting your direction on how would you like the clerk to approach violations, proactively or reactively?
Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. Yeah, I think that was a matter of practice or custom rather than maybe what the statute said, because frankly, I think many of us expected to be notified if we had a violation that we were not aware of. So I would be very interested in changing the clerk's role to be proactive.
I guess my thoughts are, I think that would be, I mean, as it was pointed out in our packet, it would be very expensive, right? But the changes we're making would do away with that, because if it's reported, right, then the clerk would go, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right, someone pointed it out. They'd say, notice a violation, you got 7 days to cure, and you either cure it, you pay the fine, or know you're going to pay the fine, or they'll give you some other option to cure it. But then again, we also have made some changes tonight so far that talks that all the reports will be due on the same days, so the clerk will know when someone's failing to report a report, right? I would suggest that it should be proactive for monthly reporting, because that's easy to check.
That's all there is.
Well, no, there's other violations for failing to put paid for by Mayor for Bagley on postcards. I mean, there are several violations currently still. Go ahead, Val.
Well,
sorry, Valerie, Miss Skit.
Thank you. Mayor Bagley, I'd just like to just give you an example of what proactive role of a clerk would be. That would be scanning every ad in the paper, scanning every flyer that comes in the mail, doing a lot of work out there in the community to find the stuff and look at it, rather than wait for someone to bring it forward and say, oh, I got this in the mail and it didn't have the paid for by Bagley on it. The reports were always thoroughly reviewed. I could tell you that right now from the clerk's standpoint, that they were always thoroughly reviewed, but there were things going on in the community that we didn't know were going on in the community, and now you're asking the clerk to go out there, find those things. That's a proactive clerk's role versus a reactive clerk's role.
Councilmember Rodriguez. The queue is full, by the way, so we will work our way through.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I guess I would have to say I'm pretty split on this one due to the cost and the amount of time it would take for the clerks to be proactively, monitoring all of these various facets. In a perfect world, I'd love to see it happen that way, and in concept of keeping that level of accountability on the candidates. But I don't know how realistic it is to ask the clerk's office with their resources to be doing that on top of their existing workload. And so I'd be inclined to keep it as a reactive positioning.
Councilmember Finley?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I am in agreement with Council Member Rodriguez. There's no way a clerk can go out and see everything that goes on. And believe me, the other candidates will find it and report it. I just don't think you can do that. I don't think you can be everywhere. You can't physically be everywhere that the candidates go. So I think the way it is now works just fine.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I agree with Councilman Rodriguez and Councilman Findley. I don't think, since we've eliminated electioneering communication, there is no way the clerk can find that out. We used to require that people bring in a copy of the electioneering communication and a copy of the they paid the printer or the whatever, but we don't do that anymore. It would be impossible for the clerks to do that. And as Councilwoman Finley very astutely said, there are plenty of people out there who read through all this stuff with a fine-tooth comb, and they will find it.
Councilmember Waters.
Yeah, I'm favoring a more passive approach or less proactive approach for all the reasons that have been said. And I guess if I wanted to be an ornery candidate and I found a mistake that you didn't, now I can put you on trial, not the candidate, or both you and the candidate. Now I can challenge the whole system because you're not paying enough. I mean, where does that end, right? Did you start to discredit the efforts because it wasn't proactive enough or you didn't catch something? I think that is a rabbit hole we do not want to go down.
Councilmember Peck?
I agree with everybody as far as keeping it reactive, so I move that we do not change the clerk's role from reactive with regard to violation finding.
Second. Yep. Councilmember Martin?
I do confess that I hadn't imagined proactive as being so extensive as going out and chasing all the electioneering communications. I was thinking that the clerk should review the filings for violations, and I still think that the clerk should proactively review the filings for violations, and so maybe we could separate those things, and I think maybe the thing to do would be to, that I should make a second motion after this one is voted on.
Agree.
Okay.
All right, so let's vote. The current motion on the table from Councilmember Peck, which has been seconded by me. Yes, thank you. I got your back. That the clerk's role shall remain reactive with regard to findings of violation. Let's vote. Well, okay, I guess I'm the only one that needs to push it. All right, it passes 6-1 with Councilmember Martin against. All right.
Mayor and Council, if I may just clarify one last point on that note. So the clerk will review reports thoroughly, do our best, and then respond reactively to complaints as they come our offices, the way of our office.
With one exception. Councilmember Martin, go ahead. You gonna make a motion?
Donna, I think that was what I was intending, but I don't think that's what the motion is, what you just said. That the motion was that the city clerk be completely reactive. And I would like to move that the city clerk not be responsible for communications in the field, which haven't even been reported yet, but that the regular filing should be proactively reviewed by the city clerk, and candidates should be notified of violations at that time.
I'll second that, but I'm going to restate the motion to basically just say that the motion is that the city clerk shall be proactive in regards to the reporting requirements, because that's basically being reactive by sitting at your desk and just doing your job. Right? So the motion, I guess, isn't that, because that sounded snarky, right? So Councilmember Martin, you are out of order. You are snarky. I'm kidding. I made it snarky. So anyway, the motion is that you would be proactive when it comes to reports. I know, I got 2 or 3 sandwich boards coming. So the motion is that you would, the city clerk would be proactive when it comes to reporting requirements. That was moved by Councilman Martin and seconded by me. Any other dialogue and debate? All right, let's vote. Getting punch drunk. It's 10:10. All right, somebody hasn't voted. Let's everybody push the button again. All right, that passes unanimously.
Mayor and Council, that is all of our questions that we had for you. Before I go back to my note-taking chair and relieve Sandy, is there any other direction you'd like to give us?
The only question I had that we did not address is when will it come back?
It would come back for first reading April 9th, second reading April 23rd.
All right, okay.
May I ask a clarifying question
Sure.
about the last motion? I understood the motion to be that the clerk will review the monthly C&E reports proactively with respect to reporting. I want to make sure I understand
Not-
whether the clerk is reviewing for violations or for compliance.
For compliance, meaning did they get the report in on time? If someone fails to report, one of the biggest, in talking with Valerie Skitt for the last 7 years, the whole point and the genesis of this campaign, a fair campaign finance idea in the beginning was that candidates weren't being responsive and they weren't turning in their reports, and poor Valerie would have to get on them and get on them and get on them, and there was no reason for them to return the call, turn in reports. So the last motion, my intent was, or I don't know, sorry, not my intent, it was your motion. What was your intent? But I'm presuming it was on compliance, so you don't need to comb through reports. Is that everyone's understanding? Dr. Waters?
I think so. Now, let me add.
Go ahead.
I would assume, or you can correct me, that in going through the reports to make certain that all the boxes were filled in and all the data carried over and it flowed from one report to the next, is it fair to assume that if you spotted something in that was amiss, you notified? I think you did. It's
Absolutely.
Like, you need to come in and clarify this or correct this because there's a mistake in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you interpret our motion to allow that to continue?
Well, that's how I interpreted. There was some question between us on how that interpretation was. That's why I asked for the attorney to clarify that with you, because that's what we've always reviewed them for compliance. We don't go comb through them to catch you doing something wrong, but to make sure that you have complied with the code as it's written.
But if something's
and reported.
obviously not in compliance, you'll notify somebody to.
I did. I assume Don will
That
continue
would-
to do that.
So I don't know. I'm not certain what the intent was here, because that's consistent with what has been happening, which seems to me what should continue happening.
Can we make a motion for clarification then?
I am not sure what it should be, and actually the reason that that I made the motion was because in my particular case, although I didn't find out about it until it was, the thing with Sarah was going on, and it was too late for anybody to do anything to me about it. But I did have some failures of compliance and was not notified, and so had no opportunity to cure. And they weren't about things like something wrong on a communication. They were the way I had filled out the reports.
I'm trying to remember what that was, but that came to I didn't find those mistakes, and I'm not sure it was with your contribution report so much as it was with electioneering communication reports. And I think it was with electioneering communication reports, because that was reported to me on the very last day of the period that a person could file notice of violation in my office, and there was no time to be able to investigate it and issue a notice to you under the code. So that was one of those things that would have been a reactive thing. I would have had to react to it, and the time frame, they filed on the very last day, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
All right,
So it wasn't about your expenditure and reports. It was
All right,
about your
it was-
electioneering communication reports.
It was, my understanding was that I was using the wrong rubric to determine when an electioneering communication was required, but that was a failure on the periodic filing. So maybe I didn't understand the problem, right? Well, I'm not sure about that. But anyway, whatever. I would like a wrong filing to be, you know,
I think
notified.
I think what all of us are saying, not to speak on behalf of council, but I think what we're saying is that we do not want the city clerk to be a tattletale. We want her to be supportive in helping all council members and all candidates, you know, comply with the law when it comes to their attention. You know, but not to go out and spend resources and emotion in getting caught up in it, you know. And in the past, I mean, we're not your boss. I'm not your boss. But, I mean, I know that I saw Valerie talk to I mean, I don't know about all of us, but I know for a fact there are like 3 or 4 of us up here that I overheard conversations with like, just so you know, you better do this or someone's going to report you. You know, so, I mean, I don't know how you make a motion not to be a jerk. You know, be a cool cop. You know, the guys that pull you over and say, you know, your front left headlight's out. I'm not going to give you a ticket, but you got to get that fixed. I mean, versus, you know, your tag's expired. You know, I mean, I don't know how you make a motion for that, but.
We're good.
You're good?
I think we understand,
Good?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very
Councilmember
much.
Peck?
No, what's up?
I just want to make a statement that I thought Valerie did a great job when I was running, and I made a lot of mistakes. And the whole point of doing this for me is that just normal, everyday people are supposed to be able to run for council. And our city staff needs to help make that possible so people aren't afraid to run. And it can't be so onerous financially, or because not all of us are as rich as Mayor Bagley. And $999 is a lot of money.
I fake it well. Fake it real
So
well.
I want to thank you. I think this is good. I have complete faith, Dawn, that you're going to be just as good as Valerie was.
I will do my best, I promise, to not be a jerk.
All right.
Bad cop.
Is
Thank
that
you.
any other questions on this particular topic? Tomorrow, or actually it's tomorrow, April 20th, or actually May 2nd or 3rd, we would expect as a result of our actions a host of candidates for the seats that are up for election in November, because it became infinitely easier to comply, and the punishment, the anvil, will be removed. So I'm excited. That's cool.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good job.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Ms. Skitt, for coming back. That was a big help. All right, let's move on to 11C, Sugar Mill Out Parcel Annexation Referral. Three pages.
Yeah.
Awesome. And they're pictures, yeah.
What's that?
Crayon. Awesome.
Crayon. What's that? Oh, I'm sorry. It's just a PDF. All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll be brief. So you have before you this evening a request for referral by Western Sugar LLC. They're requesting that council refer an unincorporated parcel into the annexation review process. On the screen is the vicinity map. The parcel in question is on the lower right-hand corner, the Sugar Mill annexation parcel. It's in southeast Longmont, south of Highway 119, west of County Line Road, just south of the Mill Village development. And the intent of the annexation request is to help facilitate the adjacent parcel that's called the Sugar Mill Paired Homes parcel. It's a parcel that was annexed a number of years ago, and it's been zoned. And the proposal on that development parcel is for about 100 paired homes on about 17 acres. So this annexation would facilitate that development by allowing for infrastructure improvements such as a sanitary sewer line, connection to a sewer main to the south, as well as stormwater detention and stormwater conveyance through that annexation parcel. Other than the infrastructure improvements, no other development is planned on the annexation parcel. The intent is to retain the parcel as much as possible in the natural state, and that would be consistent with the Parks, Greenway, and Open Space Land Use Designation on the envisioned Longmont plan. Staff did a very preliminary analysis regarding this request, and we didn't find any issues that would preclude annexation of the parcel. It is consistent with state statutes in terms of contiguity and other annexation requirements. And just to let you know, this is the initial step in the annexation process. The intent of the referral step, since annexation is discretionary, is to provide the applicant with kind of an initial indication of whether council is interested in considering annexation. If council refers this into the process, it does not obligate council to approve the annexation in the future. And if the annexation is referred, it'd go through the formal annexation review process, including a neighborhood meeting, notification to surrounding property owners, referral to appropriate agencies and review boards, as well as a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. That concludes my brief remarks. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to respond. There's also representatives from the ownership applicant group here this evening if you have questions for them.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I believe in your communication, Brian, that you said another possible zoning outside of residential mixed neighborhood would be residential rural. Is there any sentiment from the applicant against residential rural as opposed to mixed neighborhood?
I wouldn't think so. We'll certainly talk with the applicant about that, given that there's no plans for any type of residential development. They were just looking for a landing place for a zoning, since typically we wouldn't put a privately owned parcel in a public zoning classification. So residential rural could also work.
Okay, thank you. I think my impetus for that question is that, you know, we're in fairly close proximity to the Mill Village neighborhood, who are consistently concerned with kind of an influx of higher density developments adjacent to their neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And it would just kind of, in my opinion, probably alleviate some of their fears, you know, that they would actually stay fairly undeveloped there in this annexation if it were initially zoned rural, residential rural versus mixed neighborhood. And also in concept that should that actually want to be changed at a future date to a higher density, it would go through that process, which would inspire a little bit more public input at that point, I would assume. And so,
right, and mayor and council, we could even look at even an agricultural zoning as well, since there's no development plans on that parcel.
So as such, I'd be supportive of referring this for annexation.
Second, is that a motion?
Yes.
All right, second. Let's vote. Mayor Pro Tem? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to 2019 legislative bills recommended for City Council. Let's leave off House Bill 191210 as there's no recommendation. We can discuss that in a moment. But Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I was actually in the queue for 1210, but I will conveniently move that we adopt the Assistant City Attorney's recommendations on the other three bills.
Second. Let's vote. Oh, sorry, Councilmember Peck. Sure, we do. If there's discussion to be had, we shall discuss. Councilmember Peck.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Bagley. I have a question about SB 19192, the Front Range Waste Diversion Enterprise Grant Program. If I read the council communication correctly, it said that it would actually be the trucks, the tonnage that is in the trucks that would be measured in weight. How does that translate to the homeowner as far as the charge for this service, this fund?
So Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Peck, what would happen is that overall, the sanitation fund would be charged whatever that tonnage ends up being, and then that would be laid out to all ratepayers. And so, for example, if you have a smaller container, that would make a smaller charge back to you, and a larger container would create a larger charge to you
So we're
based on
just-
your rates. It would be
So
a
we're going
percentage
to
on
raise
rates.
the rates with the difference going to the fund. Am I correct on that?
Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Peck, if that burden was high enough to warrant a rate change, that's how it would be applied.
And what
Although it
point-
didn't seem like, when I spoke with Charles Kamenides, it did not seem like, based on his estimates, that that would have enough of an impact that would actually create a rate change.
At what point would we know that? Because it could change month to month. So at what point would we know when to start that rate change that's confusing to me.
Mayor Bagley, Councilmember Peck, it's going to be similar to any other changes in that operation in general. So for example, if we're going to stop using diesel fuel in those trucks and start using our own CNG. So that will change all of the pro formas out 5 and 10 years around what the sanitation fund does. We have a pretty good track record of what our overall tonnages look like over the last, 20 years that I know of.
Yeah.
And so, there's some good predictability around what that would charge.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In that case, I support it.
All right. Should we vote? All right. All right. That passes unanimously. All right. Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. For the people at home, since there's no one left in the studio audience, I'd like to say that followers of the city vision, there's one person left in the studio audience. We aren't trying to impose a minimum wage on Longmont. What we would really like to do is make Longmont's economy work better so that wages will rise organically. Nevertheless, we want to be working for wages to rise. And so, although I don't think that the present council has any intention of abusing the ability to impose a local minimum wage, we'd like to have that tool in our toolbox as a method of last resort to balance our economy. So I move that we support this statute. HB 19-1210. I can't see without my reading glasses
Yes, 1210.
Nobody's in the queue. I guess the other question I'd have is, do we have to make a recommendation on these things? Meaning we can stay neutral. Councilmember Waters?
Last week I think it was the last meeting. What's the bill? Is it 1281 is the oil and gas bill?
181.
181, I'm sorry. Last meeting, we voted to support 181, acknowledging there were a number of amendments were going to have to be passed, waiting for amendments. And I realize it wasn't a unanimous vote, but we approved this. On on two principles. One, health and safety. The second, local control. That was the driving principle behind many of our conversations. This is the ultimate in local control. And as you point out, there's a ton of details and procedural things, and certainly there'll be flashpoints if we were to do something with this. But in the interest of local control alone, to be consistent, I think it would be a missed opportunity for us to not put that control under the jurisdiction of city councils or municipal governance.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I in some ways, consider this to be something that looks at right-sizing policy instead of one-size-fits-all policy that, a lot of folks, especially in the more rural areas, worry that comes from Denver. So, you know, what may be the best minimum wage for Denver is not the best minimum wage for Basalt, Colorado, for instance. And so I think it allows that leeway to right-size your policy for your community rather than having to try to, you know, accommodate a statewide mandate that may not be appropriate for where you live. And I don't foresee the Longmont City Council abusing that power either. And so I would be in support of this.
What the heck? I'm not going to vote for it only because I think that, I think it's right in the communication where it says there may be a tie to the council work plan if the minimum wage is raised for those making the least in our community, but that path would be a separate policy-making discussion should this bill pass. Even though we're talking about not abusing it, it is only a matter of time before this council will be dealing with this issue, before the public is here asking us to establish a minimum wage. That's not a fear. That's just, that's going to happen. Personally, I believe that I think that everyone obviously should have a minimum wage, or a living wage, and if it were possible that everybody could drive a Ferrari, live in a huge house, be able to watch TV all day and go on vacations to Disneyland twice a year. If we could figure out a way to get people anything they want without expending time, money, resources, emotion, etc., this world would be awesome, right? Basically, you'd have my children's life, just everything given to you. But the problem is that minimum wage, the question is right-sizing, for example, it's an impossible prediction, meaning I always say, well, why not make the minimum wage instead of $12 or $13? Why not $50 an hour or $100 an hour? And economically speaking, you can tweak minimum wage a little bit, but if you start tweaking it too much, which I don't trust my ability to predict it, let alone this council or the masses, it doesn't ever solve the problem. What's going to solve the problem is education, loving your kids and giving them attention, not being an alcoholic, not being addicted to substances, studying, getting good grades, going to school, working your butt off, and, of course, unfortunately, figuring out a way to overcome generational trauma by certain people and members of our community that we've got a lot of issues. But mathematically, just taking the floor from 0 to 12 or 12 to 15 or 15 to 100, if everybody here has $15, the money's fungible. It's no longer provided the value that it has. And so I'm not going to vote for it only because it's a headache that I think will come, and it's also a headache that I don't think I have the expertise to understand what I'm doing. And I would argue, and I will argue when it comes, should I be on this council, that we don't have the expertise to understand this. And also, economically speaking, the more wide cast minimum wage is, the more it's likely to work. Whereas if you focus it like only in Seattle or only in Boulder or only in Longmont, it has a bigger negative impact on the community. So I think it belongs at a national level, if we could, rather than a state level. But I definitely want it at the state level rather than the local level. So anyway, Councilmember Beck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I think you just described a perfect person, which there is no perfect person, and someone who does make enough money to go to have a Ferrari and live in a castle. And
I didn't say castle. Now you're just being
mansion.
Okay.
A mansion is a castle.
A castle would be cool.
And I don't think that's what this. I don't think that's what this bill is about.
Oh, agreed.
I just don't think that's what it's about at all. And I thought Councilman Rodriguez stated it quite well in that one size doesn't fit all. So we would not probably have the same standards that Denver would have, or Salt Lake City, or but Basalt wouldn't have our standards either. And that's the whole point of local control, is that you know what's happening in your community. You know what the problems are, especially as we're struggling with affordable housing and homelessness. And if just $1 an hour more would help us get out of that rut, then I think that that's what government is for, is to a helping hand, not a handout, but a hand up. So I will be voting for this. I think it's a good start.
Councilmember Martin?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I think we've got a couple counter examples to some of the things that you were saying. First of all, places where there have been municipal minimum wages enacted did not require their city governments to be economic experts. Rather, what happened was that a segment of their economy got so unbalanced that the economic imbalance just thrust itself into everybody's faces. And in fact, that economic imbalance, which was, you know, the people who worked at McDonald's couldn't afford to live, was something that is very similar to what's happening in Longmont. I think we're taking, as I used the word before, organic countermeasures, and I hope we will not get to the point where a minimum wage has to be imposed very devoutly. But I think we should have the ability to do it, just like what's an example? Washington, D.C. needed the ability to do it at some time in the history of their city. And the other thing is I'd like to point out, which maybe nobody knows but me, but I have never had a single constituent talk to me about imposing a minimum wage on the city, but I have had several talk to me about not doing it. So I think it quite unlikely that we're going to have a zillion people speaking at public invited to be heard and saying we need a minimum wage, because I don't think that our people think that way. So I'm going to vote for it.
Councilmember Finley?
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I think I won't be voting for this. It's just a matter of time before there is political pressure put on this council to raise the minimum wage. And whether it's beneficial to our community economically or not, there will be those who are running for re-election who will want to do what they perceive the public wants them to do, and so they'll raise that minimum wage, even though it may not be the best thing for our community. So I will not be voting for it.
Nobody else is left in the queue. When I made my earlier comment, no one was in the queue. But so I personally, in my firm, we pay a living wage. No one at the Bagley Law Firm, no matter what you do, earns less than, I think it's $21.50 an hour. And if somebody came along to me and said, hey, you got to start paying everybody $25 an hour, people that I love would lose their jobs because I don't have the money to pay them $25 an hour. And I also know that, you know, if Danny, who worked for the city during high school, you know, she wouldn't have been able to be a lifeguard if, you know, all of a sudden it forced, if the city couldn't afford to pay her that. Or, I mean, so I guess my point is if someone currently is paying $13 an hour and it becomes $15, you know, people are going to lose jobs, and then you're hurting the people that you're trying to help. Now, tonight's not the argument about whether or not we're going to do it. I'm just saying, man, that's a headache I don't want. So by voting against it, I'm really just hopefully taking proactive measures to make sure that it never happens, but I'm in the minority, so let's vote. All right, that passes 5-2 with myself and Councilmember Finley against.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead and put it on the agenda. But no, just kidding. When's it up for a vote? Okay, July 16th? No, just kidding. We shall see. Yes, exactly. September. All right. All right, let's move on to final call, public invited to be heard. Mr. Stewart, nothing? Nothing. All right. All right, mayor and council comments. Councilmember Waters.
A few things, Mayor Bagley, thank you. First, the staff's all gone, but I just want to say publicly what I've communicated to Harold in an email. On February 27th, I was involved in the action planning activity over at the museum, which was the follow-on to the September World Cafe session. And at the end of the day, I don't know what will come of the groups that formed and the action planning that occurred. There was a pretty good turnout. And I don't know that there was enough consensus and enough energy, but it was again an evening characterized by civility and respect, no matter what the views were. People were very respectful of one another. But part of what made that whole experience as productive as was city staff who volunteered. Justin Veach from the museum was just awesome. Kathy and her team that showed up, Karen, I'm sorry, and her team were awesome. So they were superstars volunteering their own time in what could have been a dicey, emotional situation. They just handled it beautifully. So I want to say thank you again. Secondly, I placed at each of your desks this evening some marketing materials for the Recovery Cafe. I mentioned the Recovery Cafe to you in the past. The last time I spoke of this, I thought they were going to be open on April 1. I don't think that's the case. I'm told by Lisa Searchinger, who is the director of the Recovery Cafe, they'll be open in April. But of the work that we've heard Mike Butler talk about with the Angel program primarily, where we have volunteers who come along, folks who are dealing with addiction and find their way into some kind of a program with the support of the city. No matter how good the treatment program and no matter how long they're in treatment, there's a day one when they're out of treatment, when they're back in the world, and it's up to them to maintain their sobriety. And it had bothered me. I'd wondered all along, what happens on tape? What's the scaffolding that a community brings alongside what our public safety team is doing to keep people out of law enforcement and off the street and in recovery programs? And this, I think, is the first time, or one of the most interesting opportunities available now for somebody who is serious about recovery, no matter what their background, no matter what their history, no matter what their station in life, for people who are committed to recovery and need something more than just trying to get through the day. The Recovery Cafe is a startup, nonprofit 501c3. It's going to operate next door for the next couple of years. The Recovery Cafe has leased space from Central Presbyterian. They're going to be operating in the basement. They'll have a separate entrance. But I left some of these materials with Don. I hope the community pays attention to what I think is going to be a terrific opportunity to leverage with private money all the good things that are happening through our public safety department and the Angel program with tax money, right? This is not tax supported. This is donor supported, and as a way for the community, in terms of social capital, this is a reflection of some of the social capital in the community coming together in ways that are going to leverage other kinds of investments that are being made. So I just want to make certain you know it's available, and you'll be hearing more about it. Thank you.
No, it should be recognized publicly that you're involved. So thank you for your efforts in that, Dr. Waters.
Only that I attend the church, and there are other great people in this community. I haven't done anything. There are a lot of folks. I think people do deserve credit. I'm not one of them.
Well, thanks to all of you then. Yeah. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I just wanted to mention two things. Tomorrow, I know that Councilmember Peck and I are participating in the Community Champions Week for Meals on Wheels, delivering meals and serving folks at the Senior Center. I would encourage other council members to participate as well. Another thing I would like to see some council members support is the Longmont Community Foundation's 25th Grants Celebration, which is April 4th. We received an invitation, and hopefully you'll receive it again and say that you'll attend. It's a great thing to see where the community's money goes, all the great programs that the foundation's supporting. So I hope that you'll all consider going to that as well.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I wanted to thank the city staff for doing an incredible job last week when we had the bomb cyclone. We had so many outages and the whole staff did really incredible work keeping this town running despite how horrible the weather was, and we're all very, very grateful. So thank you for all the horrible hours you put in. We also, I believe all of us got a invitation from Habitat for Humanity for a city build. And I'm going to do it, and I hope all of you will do it too. It'd be fun. So get your hammers strapped on. And
What's the date?
They don't have one yet, but I'll let you know. Anyway.
Cool.
No, you didn't get it? Maybe I only got it. Anyway, I'll let you know.
Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Bagley. I just want to give kudos to Sustainable Resilience. They held a great panel discussion last night about on-demand energy, and Marcia Martin, not Councilwoman Martin, but Marcia, was part of the panel, not representing council, as well as a doctorate from INREL, and they explained on-demand energy and how we should use it quite well, and how wind and solar are becoming the energy of choice in our world, but also in our country. And that's where we're going as a city, and they did a great job, so kudos to them.
Thank you, Councilmember Peck. You started talking renewable energy, and you got her. You got her to come out of her shell. Councilmember Martin.
Well, thank you for the acknowledgement, Councilmember Peck. And I just want to say, because I learned something from Dr. David from NREL, and that is of the incredible abundance of renewable energy that we have in the world and in Colorado specifically. So, we've been accustomed to thinking of the transition before us as being hard, and it's going to be a piece of cake. Ha ha, Harold says.
All right, I guess what I'd like to share real quick is have the opportunity to go up to Wind River again. I go up there quite a bit, and had the opportunity to meet with members of the Northern Arapaho Business Council, as well as their traditional leaders, and or one of their traditional leaders. And I don't know if you guys are aware. I think Bonnie is, because she's part of Sister Cities. But this June. I think the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th, which is a Thursday through Sunday, the first group of Northern Arapaho youth will be trekking down from the Wind River Reservation and participating with youth from Longmont in a variety of activities, such as videotaping and sound recording and art and building skateboards and sharing their culture and being welcomed, and so that will be happening. Then this Friday, their pipe keeper and one of the four old men will be going up to Estes Park. I'll be joining him. They'll be as well as the mayor of Estes Park has accepted the invitation as well to be dedicating and blessing some of those native lands that they call home. And so just all kinds of that relationship not only continues, but it expands I have had very little to do with the progress with the sister cities that week. It's all the Sister Cities Committee and Janice Rebin and Jenny with the city, and it's truly turning into sister cities rather than just me driving up to Wind River. So, Dr. Waters?
Yeah, just to make the point, right as we were sitting down to dinner tonight, my sister, who used to live in Longmont, whose husband grew up in Longmont and moved back for family reasons a number of years ago, but they were one of the founders of the Sister City program in Longmont. And they've stayed close. And she sent me a text with a screenshot. I don't know if it's from Facebook, and I shared it with the mayor. It was about the summer's program with the student exchange with the Wind River kids or the Northern Arapaho kids. And was saying, how did you guys pull that off? Wow, what an exciting opportunity. So it's gone viral already.
Cool. Yeah, so no, it's there's actually currently 14 tribes visiting Boulder County and Boulder City, talking about a variety of issues. And, I've been playing on my phone, and a lot of them are like, dude, where are you? Why aren't you guys down here partying with us, playing with us? And so, no, it's just really a cool relationship. They're good people. So anyway, nobody else is in the queue. So let's go on to city manager remarks. Anything?
Got about 15 minutes of comments. No comments, Mayor, Council.
We can always revisit your performance evaluation.
No comments, Mayor.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. All right. And with that, we're adjourned.